How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Pritchard Pub. Tonight's guest is Mr. D.P. Riley of whimsyland.org.
Hello, hello.
How you doing tonight, brother?
Doing well.
Awesome.
Relaxed, finally.
I hear you, man. I had a busy day myself. Right off the bat, I'll just say hello to the chat. We got a couple people. John Douglas, how's it going? 3-point superhero landing. Cheers. And Timo Burnham. Howdy, boys. What up, Timo?
Timo.
That's the proper pronunciation.
Yep.
I know Royce kind of seeded a meme. I know it wasn't on purpose, but I mean, Timo does sound awesome, and I think that should be his rapper name, personally.
There you go.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for those who may not know who you are?
No.
What Whimsyland is.
Yes. Make me do the shill.
Yes.
I am Daniel P. Riley of whimsyland.org, literary coaching and services. I teach those interested how to write efficiently, effectively, and consistently when they want to create a project, fiction or nonfiction, doesn't matter. And on the side, I offer editing services, some creative think tanking when it comes to, back cover blurbs, advertisements, a little bit of copywriting, and some ghostwriting. But those things I can only tell you the basics about. Every one that I've done so far has come with an NDA. So,
true ghostwriting.
Mm-hmm.
The Spectre. So, real quick, John, he has a quick question. He says,
Shoot.
This might be a bad time, but he needs you to do an edit. Yeah. And then we copped him a cop in. Hail DPR.
Hey, Brian.
Hail, brother. And ghostwriting is one thing I haven't done personally, but
it's an interesting process.
Yeah. And as well as being a teacher and all that, and an author yourself, and
that's where the concept of the business came from. I was a teacher for over a decade, public school and private institution. So when I finally wrote my first published book, the first one took me a little over a year to complete, and then doing that, I figured out how to be more consistent with my own writing, how to increase my productivity. And the second one I got finished in like 6 months. And the third one, I think it took 4. And at that point I said, okay, well, if I figured out how to do this well, I can use my education experience and start teaching other people how to do it. And Whimsyland was born from that. But the editing really took off probably 6 months after I started pitching it out there to the world. I started getting requests to edit books, and developmental editing, which is analysis of the story, understanding the narrative, understanding what's trying to be told, and then finding and helping the creator shore up plot holes, make sure everything flows correctly, it makes sense. Those are a little bit more esoteric, and I found I was really, really good at them because I've been creating stories all my life, just never published anything.
So would you say your editing is a little bit heavier on like the story side?
No, I do both. I mean, education background. I real good with a red pen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that's one of the things that first drew me to you, just as you're a teacher, that this is what you've chosen to do. Like, you've walked away from that and you're choosing to continue teaching, and I respect that a lot. And I know you're a father too. Sorry about the dog.
No, don't worry about it.
But yeah, you're a father as well, and you did the single dad thing for a while. You even got a daughter.
And the homeschool parent thing. Single homeschool parent. That's difficult.
Oh yeah, dude. So it's quite the plate you're balancing there. And real quick, McCoppin adds, on the subject of kids, McCoppin adds, and the fabulous heir to the Iron Age, which is all of our children, really. That I saw a great meme. I don't know if I want to. I could probably pull it up because I got X here, but it's a fantastic meme considering the heirs, the heir of the Iron Age.
It's funny because that's also part of the title of my new series coming out around Halloween.
Oh, do tell while I search this up.
My beloved daughter challenged me to try to revitalize classic monster movie style stories. So I spent some time thinking about it, and over the course of last year worked out all 5 books that I want to do, and each one I'm going to put out in consecutive Halloween periods. The first one is titled Heir of the Dragon.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, it's a kind of modern spin retelling of Dracula in present day.
The Dracula.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I like it. I knew you'd go there. So you're tackling all the public domain monsters, all the baddies.
Yeah,
I've
got Heir of the Dragon, which is going to be Dracula. I have a beast unlike any other, which is a new take and an interesting cultural take on the Wolfman. Tentative title for the Frankenstein's monster book is How to Build a Better Girlfriend.
Oh,
that one's probably gonna piss some folks off, but I'm okay with it.
It'll sell. No, with a title like that, it sells right off the bat because people are gonna,
Yep.
So,
and the only one I don't. Oh, the creature from I think we did Creature from Crystal Lake, which was a slight nod to slasher films, Jason stuff.
Okay. I thought you were gonna go Swamp Monster.
It is, but it was a slight nod to slasher films as well, because the background setting for this one is a former summer camp that had been purchased and turned into a theme park, and it's centered around a lake, and you'll deal with the creature that lives there.
So it's Lovecraftian deep ones mixed with Jason Voorhees.
I do things very interestingly, and I'm keeping that one a little close to the vest because I like that. It's very much the classic monster, but it's not what you're gonna think it is when you're reading it.
Good.
I have a planned twist that's gonna catch a lot of people by surprise. And then the last one is Never Trust a Black Cat, which is about witches. And
like
if if it works, I'll probably do a wrap up book or possibly a novella at the end that sort of brings it all together into one conclusionary story. Hell
yeah. And real quick, just to interject, the heir to the Iron Age, boom, one day this will all be yours. This is the meme I was talking about. I think this is spot on for anybody. I mean, anybody who's kind of been in the situation.
Yeah, just, garage full of memorabilia. Yes.
Yeah. If you know, like some parents just hold on to everything. Some collect things. Some, just get old and can't. They just can't. So
I mean, my first ever comic book is up there in that frame on the mantle, and when I go, that belongs to my daughter.
The first ever.
Yeah, these are the first copies of each variant cover of G Sedai comic issue number 1 up in that frame.
Hell yeah, dude! I need to do something like that too. I'm waiting for my copy of Anvil. I am gonna baby that thing. That is my first comic in print. Oh my goodness. And then Tempered to have a physical. Actually, you're in for a treat here.
Ooh.
So back in 2014, I disconnected from the public. You know, that's when I got caught onto the game that social media is playing, you know, with promoting some, when I started realizing that, you know, there's other higher powers that, you know, at play here, controlling like speech and everything and all that stuff. So I was just like unplug until like the pandemic, really till I was like till February of last year, really, to be honest. So I recently connected with met the bassist from my old band. Shout outs to Sam Fassler.
Nice.
And he's one of those dudes he's always been super responsible and just always had his shit together. And he still had copies of my CD.
Oh, very cool.
And the show. I remember making this title or this cover here. There was an artist buddy I knew in the music scene, Jesse Switters, one of the Switters brothers. I get the names mixed up. But yeah, I just kind of went over to his apartment. He poured me a glass of whiskey. We smoked a bowl, and I just like painted this picture for him with, you know, that I saw in my mind. I was like, you know, music to me feels a lot like I'm setting sail to a new land that few people have been there, and we've just all heard stories about from the most successful and the survivors, really. And I'm setting sail, but it's like different than just like actually sailing. And that's where you get like the clouds and stuff. You know, it's like a dream. You're pursuing your dream, your head's in the clouds, all that. It's just a silhouette because it's not like to fruition yet. We're kind of just also, you know, in hindsight, shadows, just kind of walking with our head in the clouds. Anyway, I imagine this like setting sail, going to a faraway land. It's our album art before that was a man standing in front of a portal that just opened up in the middle of the desert, and he's like, oh, and I was just like, I feel like that dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a portal just opened up in front of me. What are you gonna do? You're gonna jump in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I just remember painting that picture for him while we were just chilling, and he was like, he had his computer out in front of me, and he like pulled up the moon, and he was like doing it in real time. I'm like, holy shit, that looks like a real moon already, and that looks like real light glowing off of it. It was just blowing my mind. He, you know, he kind of had the rough of it done before I even left that night. I was like, wow, dude, that's cool. So fun little story there. But like, yeah, when I get my first strike record, that's going right next to one of those bad babies in a you know, in a frame right behind me as well. You know, that
nice.
The death note there is just a placeholder. All that empty space right there is going to be stuff like First Strike, Anvil, my book, her modeling stuff.
It's a good choice. I got I had metal cast posters created of two of my commissioned G-Side pieces, Defender and Confrontation both.
Hell yeah.
We'll leave the orc to you, John.
Yeah, which monster story has orcs? That's what I want to know too, to be honest.
None of them.
None. Oh. How to build
even my fantasy trilogy doesn't have orcs in it. It has a bastardized version of gnolls, which were just radioactive people who ended up mutating underground into a primitive tribe. So I didn't go even that route.
You're jumping in my head a little bit with my like gnomes and my dwarves. That's what those are, bro. Like I say gnome or dwarf, people imagine something in their mind. Bro, no. They're hairless, huge bulbous eyes, almost like gray aliens, but like more horrifying. Yeah. Gotcha. And then, you know, the elf ears, the typical fantasy elf ears, bald, but like you know, they have culture and stuff. They're not just like golems running around, but they've evolved into like a golem-like creature, if that makes sense. It's crazy. I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty close to what I was thinking of, because there's a whole backstory that I don't even know that I actually explained well when I wrote that first series of books. but when I envisioned and started trying to describe them, it was based solely around grotesquerie. It was, strange protrusions, altered
Chaos.
facial structures, odd knobby bits of their bodies, and they had devolved into these almost chud-like swarms of creatures that just infest warrens in the mountains, and the party has to cross through this mountain and ends up in a life or death struggle against them.
We're talking lore. I'm gonna light up here. Cheers, brother. So on the subject, it's like, have you ever heard the story of how dwarves first came into being in the world of Arche? They were men once, Frodo. Or Wormtongue, actually, I think is what the scene was, right? But yeah, that's the offshoot of man. Orcs are kind of like another offshoot, but instead of like coming after, because I think humans came first and then became these bulbous, hairless creatures in the mountains and underground. Orcs are like what came before humans. They're the missing link. So if you know like the missing link conspiracy or theory in real life of like there's, I would just say like, boom, throw like a hairy Warcraft orc there that lives in Antarctica. There's my orcs. And they just stuck around because they actually kept evolving in that more simplistic, like, this is all I need. I just need to show that I have big, strong tusks and I'll get a mate. I need to be strong enough to beat all the predators, and then I have like weapons because of their bones and teeth and stuff, and I have fur, and you know what I mean? And they just stayed that way, and then they can just be conquering nomadic creatures that basically follow the flow of the waxing and waning ice sheet that's always on Arche, because half the world's frozen. That's the whole thing. But
I when I was writing it up, I tried to create this sort of circular historical system. Yes. So with Tales of Halcyon, which I will be reproducing in a much better format. I've been slowly but surely working on it, and I've got some really cool additions to put into it. But one thing that I realized I missed after writing all three of the books out was I never actually got to how it all came to be, because it was a fantasy series, but predominantly human oriented, and even the gnolls in the mountains were actually just humans, but it also had dragons, and there was never any explanation of how dragons existed.
Still working on that.
My plan initially was to create a circular history system, which is basically my world of Halcyon was a section of our planet in a period of time where things have regressed backwards after Great Cataclysm. So it's like medieval-ish Earth from a position of everything was kind of reduced, technology was destroyed, and it's become ancient magic in everybody's minds. And part of it was a nuclear disaster. The nuclear disaster caused the gnolls. It also caused the dragons to exist. And they call it,
that's cool.
They call it Levistrax, and it's the sort of big myth of that region of the world. The mountain range in the book that's referenced is called the Razor's Teeth of Levistrax, and it's supposed to be something you can never cross through. It's too dangerous. What it was the impact area of the nuclear bomb, and that nuclear bomb was a Star X warhead that was it was basically LVI, the Roman numerals, and then Star X, but they screwed up the name and just started referring to it as Levistrax, like it was this great evil mythological creature that that altered the world and gave birth to the dragons and all of this
Didn't
stuff.
it? Little boy altered Japan. So did the Fat Man. Those are the names of demons. They very well could be,
Yep. That was my idea. And after I finished writing the whole thing, I was like, man, I really didn't go into that at all. Like it's there
Yeah.
as questions.
You
but I
always
didn't
could.
touch on it enough, in my opinion. So that's one of the things I'll be correcting when I put out the Reforge.
There you go, brother. There you go.
Yeah.
You know, the origin of it all is definitely something I need to touch on too, because I have my basic rules of RK. It's as old as I need it to be to tell whatever story. So I have nuclear sites. You better believe there's nuclear sites.
Mhm.
You know, it's ended in every way. The world, you know, the reason it's half frozen, something I'll say something hit it,
Mhm.
or something happened that caused this Earth-like planet, because that's where I started with the Earth. But that caused this Earth-like planet to literally 90 degrees, just like, let's just turn 90 degrees. Yeah. Yeah. And Douglas, it's nuclear.
It is nuclear.
And
Yeah, and the logo for Whimsyland, the fairy dragon, is based on one of the characters in that fantasy trilogy, Perikstar. That is that character. He's become my mascot of sorts.
yeah, that's legit though. Fairy dragons are awesome. I may have given Katie a fairy dragon when we played D&D. May have done that.
I bought my daughter one at a Renaissance fair. It was one of those little animatronic ones with it basically had a tube that you could slide up your whatever you're wearing and under your shoulder. It sits on your shoulder and you could squeeze the thing. The air pressure makes the wings flap and the head move.
That's awesome.
So I've always loved that sort of thing. And then when I was storyboarding the cast of characters for the fantasy series, I was like, it would be really awesome to do a fairy dragon that was interactable, not just like a thing that everybody went ooh and ah and was a little perturbed by. And I thought, if I'm going to do a fairy dragon, what sort of personality should it have? And the first thing that came to mind was it's a house cat that can talk.
Yeah. That's basically
Absolutely.
Yep. I went with that kind of as well. Like just if I needed little details in the mannerisms with the description, you know, and movements and stuff, and whatever. But like the dragon's personality was just trickster, just generic cartoon trickster, but like more like a good friend trickster, you know.
That's sort of what I did. Perikstar becomes a very close companion to the main character, but in the story it starts out as basically just claiming him and spends most of the first book referring to him as Fat Slave.
That's awesome. Katie has never read the Inheritance Cycle or Saga, the Inheritance Saga. Is it Cycle? Is that some sort of mandala, or am I just an idiot? Is it
Not
Saga?
sure.
I think it's Cycle, and that's alluding to something.
I think it might be,
but I digress. She's never read that, and I named her Dragon Saphira just because that's an awesome name. Like, even if you don't like it, even if you don't like Inheritance or Christopher Paolini, which the dude seems cool. He doesn't seem like other stuck-up big authors. No names said, but like, yeah, he's not afraid to like favorite something. If you tweet at him, he may not see all of it, but seems okay. Dude seems like he's just been working and grinding this whole time,
like, as you should be doing.
Yeah, like everybody, I think there was this period of time where like people were like, oh, the movie, let's talk shit about the movie, and he probably got some flack from that, and then he started like, I don't know, he went dark. And then everybody
if I remember correctly, he was pretty young when that movie even came out. Like it hadn't been more than a couple of years after the book came out, and then they did the movie, and it was like an attempt at the lightning in a bottle theme that they were doing a lot back then. But I can imagine being as young as he was, having people lambaste something that he created because Hollywood screwed it up that bad.
And then
my heart goes out to him. I wasn't a huge fan of the stories myself, but my heart goes out to him that they just took his idea and splurged all over it.
Oh, you're a kid? We'll just do whatever we want.
Yep.
Yeah, you're a kid.
Shame.
It's our money. It's our money, kid. Your idea, our money. What can I say? The dragon will look cool. That was the thing. In the movie, I will say, Saphira was pretty great. The dragon. That's a hard thing to nail down, you know?
Yeah, I think Dragonheart did it better, honestly, though.
Dude, yeah, that's part of my childhood. Don't bring up Dragonheart. I'm gonna cry. You want me to cry on stream? That was the plan here. But yeah, I'm trying to have deep ones in my story, brother. Did you tell us all the monster stories, or just what you got so far?
Those are all the ones that I'm doing for the series. So it's just going to be 5 individual books about each of the major monsters, and then potentially I'll do a conclusionary book and round it out with 6 total. They're not like super long. When it comes to these sorts of things, I always believe the story takes as long as it takes. So
Yes.
I mean, Era of the Dragon is essentially a short novel, a long novella. I think it's probably at about 60,000 words.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit more.
That's approaching novel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good mid. Because if you double it, it's like epic length, you know, and then you cut it in half. That's a solid novella.
Yeah, I mean, Stoker's original Dracula was long. And I'm not sure that it needed to be. That can be said a lot of older books, but you know, I think I captured it. I just sort of twisted it on its head and put in some modern culture stuff that I think people will get a kick out of. It does not directly involve Dracula. Instead, the part of Dracula is actually one of his brides. So it's playing a little bit on the girl boss mentality of modern culture and making that.
There's a good way
it's going.
to boss. There's a good way to boss. You can boss good. You can boss goodly, right? You can. I mean, like, let's be serious. Like, Ridley from Aliens is a girl boss. Princess Leia is just a touch stuck up, isn't she? But we all love her because she's kind of a girl boss. Not gonna lie,
I think with Princess Leia, it was more meant to be a affectation of nobility because she was raised as a noble on Alderaan, which was a extremely high society, sophisticated culture in the Star Wars universe. Yes. So she was meant to represent something that everybody else wasn't, because Luke was raised on a farm. Han,
moisture farmer.
Yeah, Han's a slum smuggler. You know, the resistance is made up of regular folk trying to do the right thing.
So are you saying
character that's just culturally different from the rest of them, and she sort of became their sort of figurehead, if you really think about it, because like they refer to her constantly in position of power, but they actually make all the decisions around her.
Yes. And so what you're saying is it's almost like they have a reason for the way she acts, and they have reasons for, okay, so what you're saying is they had intent with their writing and they cared about their writing. Yeah. Okay. So now it makes more sense why. Okay. Yeah. See, that makes sense. No, and you know, it's like Ridley's the same way. All these good examples, like where was everybody complaining about this type of stuff when the last Mad Max movie came out, Fury Road, because Furiosa in that movie was also a great example. Like, that chick is a straight up boss, you know what I mean? She has some moments too. That's a good movie, and it's considered a flop because I think it technically lost a little bit of money at the box office, probably just because it wasn't like virally talked about enough. So like, where was everybody back then? You know what I mean? If they cared, they would actually care. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. it was not as much as like politicized as it is now, you know.
Yeah, possibly, but I think there's a lot of fatigue for certain narratives these days.
Yeah.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
Fury Road was a product of that fatigue. People are like, okay,
Walking Dead.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion probably, but the thing about it is when something is done over and over and over and over and over again, you start like the way I always look at it is if you have pizza 7 days a week, by Sunday you're craving something else.
Yeah. So you if The Walking Dead is like pizza, right? You're binging it, you're binge watching it. Oh, it's never ending. There's 3 more spin-off shows of it. Oh my goodness. And it's just like,
and it all has the same prevailing message.
Yeah.
By the time you've made it through that for a couple of days, you're like, gosh,
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go back and watch Christopher Reeve Superman because I need something different, and that's just so uplifting. It's exactly what you need. It's a palate cleanser. And fed the same thing over and over and over again.
And then something like Mad Max comes out after you've been eating all that pizza, and it's basically just like flatbread pizza.
Yeah,
very well made.
That was the cool thing about the Ken phenomenon with Barbie too. Was the same thing. We've been fed girl-centric stuff so much that when this obviously girl-centered, intentionally girl-centered product comes out, but it has this uniquely interesting male character, everyone went, oh, and looked over at him.
it's almost like he stood out,
Yeah. He was the palate cleanser. They all went, ooh, we're here. Hello, I'm doing fine, thank you.
And how many people? He's totally not yelling. And how many people?
Cruise control for Cool Hedge.
Exactly. Thanks for stopping by, Hedge. Hail. And how many people whose favorite? Oh, real quick while I'm in the chat, Stormcrow. Hey brothers, I'm sad to say I've caught a severe flu, but I didn't want any of you to think I forgot about you. Give Katie my regards, and Daniel, give me a Jizadai anime.
I'm working on it.
Yes, that's the goal for me.
And doing it the way I want to do it, it's going to be quite expensive because I'm not looking to do CG. If I'm going to do an animated series of this the way I want to do it, it needs to be appropriately drawn imagery, and it needs to run through the entire process, which means it's going to be a lot of money. So Stormcrow, if you want that anime, you got to help me sell more books, man.
Buy his book, as the Hedge would say.
Buy my book.
The Hedge would totally not yell, buy my book.
Or buy some merch.
Yeah, I mean,
that helps too. Yeah. My whole business model for creativity purposes is money I make on these individual series goes into the pot for the series. It never goes into my pocket. So all proceeds of purchases of G Sedai books, comics, merchandise, etc., that isn't going into the fulfillment and whatnot, any overhead that I make stays in the pot for the next project. That's
boy.
So help me sell more G Sedai books. I'll make that anime happen a lot faster.
I did this exact same thing. I think this is a great conversation topic. Just talking about good investment. Like I'm not giving financial advice ever, but I can talk about like the mindset I have. I know a little bit about mindsets. And basically it's like the same thing that you just said. If you have everything's going on good over here, as far as like your finances, you've been surviving. You may not have a budget to do a lot of new projects or whatever, but your bills are okay. That means all the money doesn't just get absorbed right away when your book sells. And you can think about clever things to do with that. And it doesn't have to just go right to gas or whatever. It can funnel back in. You can just funnel all that baby back in and let it pile up and put it all back in and just go hard on that. And what that does is it grows things, and it can grow things to certain points, certain breaking points where they kind of take on a life of their own. Like, I know my book and just the support of like the community and just kind of people, I think I appeared on Iron Age Nights right away when I rejoined Twitter as a new author and stuff. And that helped a little, that helped a little bit with getting my name out there. And it was able to sell my initial book enough to pay for a couple pages of the official comic. Those couple pages were enough to show Anvil Magazine that I'm serious and I'm working with Luke Stone. That was enough to do who knows what's next. But like now that comic, like because I showed Anvil Magazine, that is 15 pages. And I'm probably going to start a crowdfund to make that an entire graphic novel. And you can see where I'm going with this. Just because I had that cyclical mindset with the finances, it led to just a couple pages, but that was enough to just like lead to everything else. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying like wait 5 years while your book that you make $1 per copy on sells like X amount of copies, because that's not realistic either. But the other thing I did is to get the like the page count I needed, and like when to just get the full package together, I did have to make sacrifices in my own finances. So like I don't really watch TV or movies. Like I'll go on YouTube, I'll catch up on some stuff, I'll brush up on some people, but like I don't even like play video games. The last extra money I had, I got a bunch of Iron Age books for Christmas. You know what I mean? And that's like the kind of sacrifices you got to make, because then now whenever you get that little extra chunk of change, just I'll get an extra page. Why not? And then that adds up over time. And then
and that's sort of how I ran the issue number 1 comic book. I had saved up enough, and it took me 8 months because I was paying my artist Kevin. Shout out to Brian for pointing me in his direction, because he's been phenomenal. But it was every month paying for a couple of pages when I could, and that was just from sales, because that was the money that I wanted to pull from. I didn't want to have to pull from the business side. Whimsyland is a totally separate thing, even though it's where all of my stuff is located and it's the logo that's on everything. But the business itself of teaching clients and editing projects is totally separate. That money is for my home, the lights, the things we need as a family, my daughter and I. That is what that's for. So I waited until I had built up enough to pay Kevin for those first couple of pages. And then I was intentionally trying to drive as much money into GSI as I could each month, so I could keep buying more pages until I had all 32 to create the comic book with. And then the special edition, the idea behind that was literally, if you like this thing, if you find this thing interesting, contribute to the campaign, get the special edition version so that I can produce the next book even faster. That's all.
That's all. It's very simple. Very simple. And
it's already working. I mean, Kevin's most likely in the next couple of days, from what he told me last time we talked, gonna have pages 10 through 20 already ready for me. So we'll have 12 pages after that before the next book's ready to start putting together, and the next campaign will start, and it just keeps rolling that way. So that's why I say to Stormcrow, you want that anime? Help me sell books, help me sell comics, help me sell merch, because it all goes into that pot, and boom. The next thing is quoted. Yes, buy my books.
Yup, as Herman P. Hunter would say, buy my books. I'm totally not yelling. I'm just gonna. He's so quotable, honestly. Boom, and then I can just pull it right up. Nice, he has these concise all caps, so it's clear to read. The lettering there is nice, Herman. I like that. Nice lettering. But yeah, Anvil 3 ships Monday, I believe Richard said, and from there, the world will finally get to see a Saga of Sunsets, which will be their window into RK, which the book has been out, which I understand people could have already dived headlong into it by this point, which a few people have, but it's really just kind of a circle of people. I wouldn't even say I even have like an audience yet. Like I have an actual audience for like the YouTube channel more, to be frank, but that's actually kind of what ends up happening. Like consider like Eric July, for example. Like he's always been like a YouTuber.
Creating the comic in the first place was broadening exposure of the story. Yes, a lot of people don't read books, is what it is.
Right.
Why we want to do an anime eventually as well.
Yes.
The whole point is to keep iterating into different modes of entertainment so that more people jump into this story itself. That's what you want. And that's really the only way, as far as I can see, to ramp up production and get you where you want to be if you want to turn this into a legitimate business, which I do over time.
Yes. And that's kind of like, so let's say I put out just a Saga of Sunsets, right? Not the anthology book, but let's say a Saga of Sunsets is like novel length. I put that out for me to publish that book, and then the next thing I do is a comic for that book is kind of like doubling down on that. Mm-hmm. That's an investment. To have that funneling mindset is an investment. To get this second project, which is the comic in this case, to the point of completion and delivery and into the hands of people is an investment, because that's not going anywhere now. That's done. That's cashed. You can put that on the shelf. It's there. You can sell that until you die. And it's the same with your book, right? Mm-hmm. Those are not going anywhere. There's no expiration date. I mean, a lot of people like to talk about like the first month on like Amazon and stuff like that. But like, sure, there's algorithmic snowball effects, but your book is not going anywhere. And at some point, it could be easily featured on like a website, a YouTube channel, or something. And then all those sales spike because it's just there. You know what I mean? True. I saw this old lady on, me and the wife have been diving into the cringe of TikTok, also the strange, dark, and mysterious, I will say, and the absolute insane, right? I personally love.
Isn't that just TikTok in general?
Oh yeah, dude. It makes me angry a lot of the time. but there's some beautiful things on there too. There's some super informative things. I mean, I see what you're doing, China. I see what you're doing. But I digress. There's this dude on there who was telling a story, and he said that an indie author was allowed to set up in front of a shop one day and sell her book, and she had some disability, such as Parkinson's. I think it's Parkinson's. So physically writing a book is nearly impossible for somebody like that. Yeah. But she had something like that. That was just like, wow, I'm really sympathetic for this person. And she looked homeless, and she was just like this poor old lady indie author selling her book out in front of the store, had permission to do it. And I guess people came up and just kind of heckled her until she left. And this person who was telling the story was so like upset by that, just from people coming. I don't know why. I think it's because of the premise of the story. Something lagoon related, actually, since you're doing the creature of the lagoon. I think it's something like that. Like I drowned in the lagoon or something is the title. I can't remember. Katie would know. But I digress. So this dude told the story, and his video ends up going viral. And he shouted out her book, her name, her author name, put her Amazon page up there, and I'm sure she saw a bunch of sales, bro. Because she had it on Amazon. It was right there, you know?
Yeah. The more
So-
avenues you have towards getting eyes on it, the better.
But yeah, so there's some beautiful things like that in there. But the whole reason I even bring that up is because, like, I personally have been loving the insane side of TikTok, like really crazy people, like conspiracies. Oh, bro, the conspiracies are literal gold for authors. If you are a completely rational-minded person who happens to be an author, who can hold two concepts in your mind at the same time without, I don't know, letting it affect you. Sorry about the dog. Then just diving into this for sheer entertainment is valuable, because let me tell you, I just keep my notepad open, sit down, eat a sandwich, let like a half an hour compilation of them go, and just listen to all these insane people talk about stuff. And the worst you get is it's interesting, or you just don't believe it, and you just wait for the next one. That's as the worst it gets, you know. And you're just like, okay, I've heard enough of this. This isn't even capturing my imagination. Go back to the flat earth stuff about everything being inside of a globe and there's just water above, because I can imagine like Cthulhian, Lovecraftian, like tentacles coming out of the firmament and reaching down into the flat earth. You know what I mean? Not to mention the flat earth is the only conspiracy that comes with its own. It comes with its own world map.
Yeah.
Like Tolkien. So there's that.
Flat Earth cracks me up. I like both the flat Earth concept and the lizard people concept, because they contradict each other. If the Earth is flat, how do the lizard people live under it?
Yeah, because the lizard people are in the hollow Earth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's flat, where is hollow Earth then?
Now they would say, "Oh, I already know, bro. I've watched." Okay,
The upside down.
No.
If you flip
Kinda.
flat Earth over, then it's just the lizard people live on the mirror version.
These people go so deep into this. Really quick before we tackle this, because this is gonna be awesome. Wolfsbane Comics. Hey everyone! Shout out, Aaron. Thanks for coming by.
What's up?
And Michael Harris. Howdy.
Hey.
The Yeti Lord himself.
Mm-hmm.
He says it's fantastic. And to those listening, sorry about my dog. He's excited that Mama's home. But anyway, so these people go so deep into this that, like, not only do they have like a flat Earth map, they grab every angle of science that they can, like the most intense world building I've seen just from like surface level glances at it. I saw it was like a side. It's like a famous like sideways shot of the flat Earth. You know, so you can see like the dome. It's sideways, but it's not actually flat. Like apparently, like there's like the pillars of the world. It's very like it follows the biblical description very closely. I think that's how this resurfaced actually. Is you get
Probably
an increasingly crazier and crazier world with insane stuff going on. People get scared. They go to the scripture. It happens to say that there's a firmament and the pillars of the world and the underworld and the waters above and stuff like that. And you're just like, it's true. And I mean, I've never gone to space. I don't know. But
very few of us have.
I've seen a lot of photos and videos of, and it seems pretty obvious that the Earth is round. Yeah. I mean, when you look at other
photos and videos can be doctored.
100%. Haven't you heard, bro? Everybody
never happened.
Yeah, everybody at NASA is a Photoshop artist. Haven't you heard? Which is weirdly true. But I'm sure that's just a wing. It's like the Photoshop wing of NASA, you know. But yeah, I mean, so they'll grab onto stuff like that and just run away with it.
Yep.
But yeah,
my favorite so far is Valiant Thor.
Valiant Thor. Oh, I've heard that name. Break it down for the audience.
It's
Oh, I just remembered. Yeah.
Essentially, it's apparently this benevolent alien being and his starship out there on the outside of whatever bubble you want to call it that surrounds flat or not flat Earth. But he's been here helping for a long time. There's apparently some sort of quote unquote photo that circulates every couple of years of him in like a Pentagon briefing or some shit. It's interesting, but there are people who have whole websites dedicated to their alleged communications with Valiant Thor. And being a Stargate watcher, I always think, okay, so
Stargates, bro.
He's a little gray dude in a big starship that's protecting the Earth from the Egyptian alien gods, right? You know, that's how this works, really.
One linking commonality, even in like conspiracies and religions, is like the return of something. So like if somebody returns or something returns, and then it's either the beginning or the end of everything. And yeah, we got Douglas. He says the Earth isn't flat. The Earth splits in half and has a bunch of smaller cube-shaped planetoids floating between the two halves. Don't ask me how I know this. I could see it. You know, I could see it. Where all them Yetis go, right? Right, John Douglas? Or sorry, yeah, John Douglas and Michael Harris. Where them Yetis at?
You gotta ask Michael Harris where all the Yetis went. He would know.
And Edge. I was thinking the Earth was more rhomboid.
Trapezoid.
Both seem plausible. Also on the flat Earth map, right? Apparently you get to the edge and there's the ice wall, like Game of Thrones. Totally not from Game of Thrones. And beyond it is like the lands of Asgard, and like, you know, that's where they would say, well, actually they just confused the reptilian theory with like the lands beyond the ice wall, bro, and like that's why they think the Earth is hollow, because they had to like travel through a tunnel in the flat Earth to get beyond the ice wall, bro. So they think they've just like gotten into the hollow Earth. You know what I mean? That they would say something like that.
It was the Warriors 3 that took out Mario on Rainbow Road too, just so you know.
Yeah. Oh man, so you can see we're tons of story. I mean, okay, just an ice wall at the edge of the world. I know Game of Thrones did it, but there's a lot of potential there. Hollow Earth, right? Holy crap! Talk about like Feywild, Underdark, whatever you want. You go to the Feywild.
I like the kaiju version.
Oh, that's cool too. Yep, you go there and it's like Jurassic Park. There's lots of versions. Kong. There's giant insect world, reptilian world, Atlantis. You name it. Everything is in the Hollow Earth, apparently. You know, there's the spaceship moon theory, where it was towed into our orbit and left there, and it is yeah, Death Star orbiting. Just watch her.
Nah, go with the Doctor Who episode. It's just a giant egg that hasn't hatched yet.
Very Lovecraftian of Mr. Who. I like it.
Because in that episode, it ended up being some sort of giant ass cosmic space dragon that flew off and left another egg behind that turned into the moon for some asinine reason.
Kind of like the space whales and
yeah.
Those are totally
going on in Whovian worlds.
those Purgles, I think, is what they're called. Totally canon. As a Star Wars Armada player, let's see. Yeah, I can vouch for like they have been in there for a while. So I know some people were upset about the space whales in Star Wars, but they've basically been in there since Filoni got his hands on Clone Wars. He dumped the Purgles on us. Yeah, Douglas, same. The world is a vampire. And
I haven't smashed any pumpkins since I was 16 years old.
Oh, me either. And Paladin Dragoon, hail. Hail. Michael Harris says he's sworn to secrecy. Wolfsbane says that's Scientology on steroids. I agree. And he wants to know, Paladin wants to know how's his favorite editor. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Contrary to popular belief, yesterday did not kill me.
Yeah.
By the end of IAK, I decided that I was going to do the final show with my hand because I was just oozing off of the chair. And as I said in the Gilded, normally I hang out and shoot the shit on the backstage and whatnot. That would be nice. We could go for it. Done. But normally I hang out for backstage after IAK, but I was so drunk, and as soon as the show ended, everybody was still talking. So it's just like, bye, click, and I just went and collapsed in bed.
Passed out, all done.
Yep.
We've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just gotta dive headfirst into the bed and just like take a small coma. We're gonna take a little coma before we get back to business.
Wake up call 9 p.m. for me because I'm on the East Coast. So IAK starts at 9 p.m., ends after midnight, and I had 6 glasses of double rye whiskey by the end of that panel stream was over. So, yeah, it's a perfect storm.
I mean, people gauge your. They try to visualize how much you've had to drink based on your slump. I've seen it. Yeah. I've seen it happen before, and it's a thing. It's a thing.
It is a thing.
To the point, I mean, it's crazy. And then so I start running, and then he starts running after me.
Yeah, Porky loves you. Our dog is harassing Katie.
Come on.
Excuse me.
Hi.
And we have another host. Boom. We'll go wide mode for the host.
Now you got 3 hosts.
Oh,
exactly.
Now they're all crazy.
Our dogs are barking. Here, really quick.
I'll just try to entertain everybody with my hand dancing. I'm being Royce. I don't know. Here, I'll go look at the chat while the dogs are barking.
Thank you.
Do. Revive the gif of the scale on the back of Daniel's chair. Yes. Richard actually never did. Yes, strike the pose. Richard never did do that. He had talked with my daughter at one point about trying to create an attachment for the seat of power that was like a ruler that you could just attach here, and it would measure how drunk I am based on where my head was to the ruler, but he never actually made it. I was very disappointed.
That's pretty great.
The rapier has a story in that I am trained in fencing. That is the story behind that. I do know how to use this thing to poke holes in people if necessary.
That's awesome. Yeah. So yeah,
stint of wanting to be a musketeer.
That's awesome. The teacher with the rapier, like, listen up, like, pointing at the chalkboard. Yeah. The next person who gives me an apple, I'll slice it in half. Yeah. So alternate Earth theories is, besides hollow and flat, what other varieties do we have here of some other Earths?
I've only ever heard of hollow and flat Earth theories.
Yeah.
I do like the one video that was circulating probably like a month ago. Some young guy who was a flat earther who was trying to prove it with a directional light experiment and failed, basically disproving flat Earth. And he was absolutely like standing there in the dark, absolutely stunned at the fact that he was proved himself wrong.
Whoops.
Oh my God.
I should have tested that before.
Good evening, everyone. By the way.
Hello.
How's it going tonight?
I am sober, so it's going well.
We're discussing conspiracies.
Turn the brightness up a little bit?
Yeah. And I let everybody know the juicy treasure that lies between the lines of every conspiracy. There's potentially an awesome fantasy story.
Wait, are we going to talk about the video we watched where those 3 guys were streaming and the one says, how far can you see with the human eye? And one of them looks up and says 3 miles. And then they're all like, oh, this is how many miles away the moon is. Okay, first of all, have you ever been in any sort of elevation? Because 3 miles, wow. It was pretty pathetic. That 3 grown adults, really, it's just, and they were serious.
Yeah. Sometimes people take details like that and just run away with them. Like,
oh, yeah. What? Hey,
my answer to that is I can only see as far as the nearest thing in front of me.
Right.
Yeah. Barely
my hand sometimes, you know.
We have
But my first thought when I heard that, I was like, stars? Those are light years away. We're seeing that light, so I don't know.
We have to do something about
wrap your head around that one. Half of them are already dead by the time we're looking at them.
Right. That's always a fascinating little little fun fact.
Science is fun.
Can we do something about this light? I look like I have no eyebrows. I can't do it, and my eyes are just like raccoons. Yeah, something needs to happen with this. Okay, let's see.
Michael Harris says, Earth used to have megafauna. Ooh, and mountains are tree stumps. I love that theory, actually. I've seen that a couple times. Because there's these tabletop mountains, natural ones for sure, but the ones that people are more interested in when you look at them from an aerial view resemble tree stumps. They look like petrified tree stumps, and they have actually found petrified trees and stuff like that, which supports some of these conspiracies, and they run away with that. And they're like, oh, this proves it. And
trees being that big.
Right. And they're like, and giants were real.
Like the planet itself just looks like a giant piece of broccoli because you just got these singular massive trees sticking out.
Dude, like I said, story gold, story sauce, bro. I see you, Paladin Dragoon, Michael Harris, John Douglas, all you fantasy, Herman P. Hunter. You got a new book out? I saw that trailer. Don't think I didn't see that trailer. Gigafauna? Mega Gigafauna. Yeah, that's probably.
Uber Mega Gigafauna.
Planet X. We should get into that. Let me shut this light off.
That's one I don't know. You're going to have to explain it to me.
Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on our...
Oh, that's fine.
There's too much to do, I swear.
Are you familiar with Planet X?
Nope.
Nibiru? Mr. DP Riley?
Hold on.
Planet X Nibiru?
Nope.
What?
I don't even remember. What'd you do that for? What'd you do?
Oh, I was going to mute it, but if you were going to talk to them, I thought you were talking to me.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, have you guys heard of the Venus Project? Because that's actually very interesting.
You have to explain that one.
So I can't remember who was behind it, but I know it's a real thing that they worked really hard on and actually presented to leaders of different countries and everything. And it's basically a total like global reform where the careers, schooling, prison systems, everything is basically, let me look into it a second because I don't want to give you guys wrong information. It's been a long time since I saw the video, but it's basically blueprints for as close as utopia as you could get. But
yeah,
let me see here. Let's see if we can find. Okay, so go ahead.
Oh, okay. And Planet X, yeah, like Paladin Dragoon said, I believe, is a planet past Pluto, and it's on a crazy elliptical orbit that's super wide, and apparently every X thousand years or whatever, it travels through the Milky, or like not through through the Earth's path or whatever, and it gets very close, like close enough that allegedly the electromagnetic field of this planet is supposed to drag the Earth along with it, and maybe turn it at a 90-degree angle and put it into an ice age, perhaps like the world of Arche. I don't know. I said it here, but that's the idea. And there was one time where I had a little extra time to kill, and I I was just like, Illuminati on YouTube, go, and I just like went as far as the conspiracies would take me. This was years ago when I was like a kid. Oh, she's showing you guys something.
So you can kind of see it a little bit.
I can pull the full screen.
No, Chuck.
I don't want to
Okay.
interrupt. So it's basically, they believe that we're a product of our environment, and no one would struggle with hunger or money, or, if you wanted to go to a certain part of the world and live there or vacation, you could. It's a lot of things like that. But I'm trying to find a good synopsis of it, which right here it just says, a utopia. Oh, no, never mind. That's not what I want to read. I was going to read you the definition of utopia.
So I dove into this rabbit hole
Where
on
did that
YouTube
go?
that started with just the word Illuminati. And this was, I don't know, 2011, 2012.
Damn
something
those
like that.
Freemasons.
Yeah. Oh man, that's hilarious too. More story sauce. It's all story sauce. It's great. But I let it go, and the end of the road was Planet X Nibiru, traveling close enough to the Earth to just destroy everything, Armageddon, scramble our brains before it gets here, so we're all just drooling as like.
Oh, hey, at least we won't feel it then.
Exactly, but then that kind of implies that you should wear a tinfoil hat to protect your brain from the electromagnetic. And I'm
If
just
you
like,
want to feel the apocalypse, you wear your tinfoil hat. Yeah.
and suddenly it came full circle, and I was like, oh, that's where tinfoil hat comes from. Okay, that's one of the sources anyway. And I was like, okay, click out. I'm done. I was like, it actually kind of scared me. I'm like, oh man, I don't even want to think about this stuff at the time because I wasn't like an author. But
I much prefer the slightly more plausible tinfoil hat protects you from the government reading your mind with radio waves.
that's the other thing, yeah. Government.
It was really hard to find a good. So if anyone saw the video I posted about the Freemasons, that's wild. So when we filed the order for protection against someone, I went to the Family Pathways advocate group in our county, and they helped me go through it and file. And so they knew we had a son, and then they called us and said, hey, can we put him on a Christmas list? People in the community love to give to children, so do you mind and sending us a little wish list? And I said, sure, that's great, awesome. So we did that, and then she called back and said, oh, we have this Christmas family dinner that you guys can attend. It's free. There's pictures of Santa. The Freemasons in Cambridge are hosting it. Should I put you down? I was like, yeah, that's awesome. And I was mainly thinking we could meet some people in our area or not too far away with kids, and it could be really great. So she was going to call me right before to give me the final details. And she called me and told me that the fathers weren't allowed to go.
Mm-hmm.
So the men of the Freemasons group were hosting it, but they were not allowing
Men.
the fathers to be there, which
Yeah.
I thought was very anti-family.
Ladies only.
And, well, so I can see if it's some kind of, these women are traumatized by men or something like that. But I feel like it was so anti-family. But then I got a really creepy, are they trying to traffic people vibe?
Yeah. Sometimes you get those vibes. And that's like,
So it just made me really uncomfortable. But I was like, I'm not going without Andy. There's no way.
Really quick, I'm going to catch up on the chat.
It's hard to say what happens with secret societies.
Dude, yeah. And there's a lot of them, Skull and Bones.
Well, and since there's different branches, who knows how different they could be from each other, too.
And have you ever heard somebody like secret society? Oh, that's conspiracy theory. Well, Epstein, and his whole cabal, like underground network or whatever, the E word or whatever that we've all heard a million times now. Technically a secret society going on there. Like they are real. I mean, just maybe not as like maybe not as Conan the Barbarian as some people imagine. But maybe more so in some cases too, because there's a lot of people on Earth. I don't know if you've heard of the those European human sacrifice cults. They've been in the news a few times. There's actual cults in the woods in Europe that do sacrifice people, and it's, you know, in modern times that's more like To Catch a Murderer type stuff. Like that's more legal, you know. That's more like crime. Just saying. But yeah. So everywhere you go, there's this stuff. But catching up on the chat, giants are real.
Oh yeah.
I like that stuff. I like that stuff.
At least they were.
There is a lot of stuff on that, and it's really fascinating. Really fascinating. Like the mounds in North America. Tim Allen, the mead be with you always. Hail, Tim Allen. Thanks for coming out.
You know, I think it would be best if we at some point pulled up a video about it. So we should do one soon where we go through the Venus Project and different things like that. It's extremely socialist. It's like as socialist as you can get.
Oh yeah. And Michael Harris.
Which I think socialism can work in some ways for sure.
Usually in small groups.
Well, the whole planet's not a small group.
Well, communism technically works on like a village level.
That was the word I was looking for, that word when I was on the phone with your mom.
Yeah.
When she said we need to get rid of classes and everyone needs to get paid the same amount, and I was
I'm like,
trying to find that word in my brain, and
there's
I
a
couldn't.
word for that.
I kept thinking dictatorship, which
It's the same
she like
thing.
keeps talking about how she's afraid of the Republican dictatorship. But anyways,
But we
I
should
couldn't
install a
figure out what
dictatorship.
word I was like.
Woo,
Oh,
rough.
Yeah, I lost my thought.
Oh, sorry,
Damn,
sorry.
I've got issues tonight.
Well, Michael
brain's not
Harris
there.
says there's a theory that the asteroid belt after Mars was a planet that got destroyed. I've also heard the theory that Mars had a moon. There's a lot of cool shit with Mars too. More story sauce. Authors, hello. Are you seeing what I'm talking about?
Okay, speaking of belts, can anyone actually explain to me how astronauts get past the Van Allen radiation belts without getting sick?
This is
Because I cannot figure it out.
And when you look at the original moon landing thing, it's like paper thin tinfoil. It's like
To make
and then
high.
you ask the astronauts about it, and they literally don't even know what you're talking about. They don't know what the
Because they weren't there.
well, it's interesting how they connect these dots and then start making you second guess everything. But yeah, I mean, there's even like CNN footage, and it's like the moon landing footage, and it's like CNN, and you'll see everything to try to disprove something or prove something. That's the other thing. One thing's for sure is they're probably not telling us everything.
Probably not.
Right. We can agree on that.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't tell us everything, but pretty sure we've been to the moon. I think the Nazis were talking about going there. Just saying.
Yeah, and we're not going to let the Nazis do something before us.
Well, they got us there. We absorbed them all. And
I can't handle that
we
we
left them.
sent a dog into space to just
Yeah.
float off and die.
and how
I
many
can't
people-
handle so much.
How many people that they didn't tell us about?
I am just not compatible for life because
Just monkeys.
it's just too
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah,
It's
the monkeys
too
too.
much.
Yeah, it's the closest thing to a human. It's not good either.
Nazis,
to have-
monkeys, and dogs. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. They're just up there
I
somewhere.
don't give a shit about the Nazis if they float off and die.
Right. Good old National Socialist Workers Party. Thinking about
Yeah, they
space.
populated the dark side of the moon. It's fine.
That's what I heard. That was what I was alluding to, actually.
That needs to be one of your good morning memes.
Another. Send it to me. Send
Okay.
it to me and I'll do that. That's another story sauce, another story seed. This,
Good boy.
lack of a
They
better
did
You're gonna
that
get your
in
neck
Iron
hit
Sky.
between our chairs.
Right.
Bob.
They're on the dark side of the moon of
Come
whatever
on, orcs.
fantasy
Yeah.
planet.
Buddy.
Yep. Yep. You got it.
Wow.
So, Michael Harris on the tinfoil hats, not reading your mind, implanting thoughts into it. Implanting
go.
thoughts. Yeah. And isn't that
Via
TikTok?
radio waves.
Isn't that TikTok? Isn't that already happening.
Oh,
Isn't that?
now Rolly's
They
rolling
just
up.
they bypassed the tinfoil.
So
Maybe they're
jealous.
onto something in like the 60s. When I don't know. I'm assuming shortly after Roswell or something is when.
If they really could do it, there would be no need for Elon to create Neuralink.
Right. That would be, yeah, that's going to be the next thing. People, one day, Daniel, people are going to be able to like walk into the same room as you and like read your heartbeat. You know, everything just, the logical conclusion is like, oh, they're going to read our mind. Oh, yeah, sure. We'll be able to like Bluetooth our minds together and just have a conversation and stuff. But I'm talking about like even people without the chip.
That would be the destruction of all society right there.
Get
Right.
Everybody actually inside everyone else's personal thoughts. Yeah, that's when the world ends.
And even if they're not
done with that.
in there because like let's say you refuse to get the chip but I have it, who's to say that my chip doesn't like super like make my brain processing super efficient and I can just like pick up on your heart rate and like I can pick up on your body language and I can almost read your thoughts without even having to read your thoughts. I mean, that alone is going to be creepy to have like people that are also computers essentially walking around.
Certainly imaginative.
Yeah, more story sauce. And I'm guessing that's where the world of like cyberpunk and Blade Runner kind of went with their theories.
Yeah, Blade Runner didn't even really go there as far as I remember.
You don't need
They
to stop.
they very much
being
do
really
the classic showing the tip of the iceberg. They do the iceberg theory very well.
Yeah.
And I think there's also theories that the Blade Runner is in the same world as aliens.
The dog disagrees.
Yeah, he doesn't like talking about Blade Runner. Apparently, he didn't like Blade Runner.
Nope.
But yeah, it's apparently in the same world.
Everyone's a critic.
Right.
Yes,
The whole point I was trying to make is like Ridley Scott also does that storytelling method where it's just the iceberg. He
Mhm.
just like
Hey,
we're on the ship
come here.
and we see that it's like a company ship
What are you
because of
doing?
the environment and stuff like that. You can allude to a lot of things just based on
Yep.
that kind of thing.
What's your problem? Being crazy. Dude, Orcus.
Today's conspiracy theory is tomorrow's headline, which is true. Super true. And the Kuiper Belt, is that the one beyond Mars, Tim Allen? I thought it was. Yeah, because I think the Ion, isn't it called like there's a different asteroid belt beyond the solar system, right? I can't remember. The names always elude me. Oh, and it was the Soviets that sent a dog into space.
Yeah.
Cosmo.
We sent chimps. Okay, yeah, that's
Yep.
way worse. You know.
So they said Nazis, monkeys, and
Not way
dogs.
worse.
Well, it's all of it
Only
is
worse-
pretty bad.
It's all bad,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's all
But I
pretty
mean,
bad.
it's only worse because there was more beings that can't consent to being launched off to their death like that,
Mm-hmm.
like
With
starving.
Opposable thumbs and expressionful eyes. Well, I suppose dogs have expression eyes too.
Even cows are, they'll like comfort each other in line
Yeah.
for slaughter. And
Yeah,
stuff. You know,
It's horrifying.
we do not give animals enough credit. For example, I hear people talking about how they buy their dogs dog beds and they don't sleep on them all the time. And that happened to us. We bought a dog bed. I put it somewhere. Orcus would never use it. And we had it for a few days. So I picked it up and I looked right at him and I said, "Where do you want your dog bed?" And he walked over in front of the TV and looked at me in the bed and I put it there and he started using it. So it's as simple as, I mean, just ask your dog,
Yeah,
or at least try.
I think some people are so
Ask
staunch.
your dog if it wants to be shot into space.
Yeah.
Well, I
Never
mean,
does.
within reason.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think some dogs might have a little more intelligence than others too.
Oh,
And some,
actually,
you know, it depends, but
100%. And then
he
context.
can't do my taxes.
Right. Context also, Daniel. You could ask I would be willing to bet money you could ask a dog if it wants to be shot in the face. Granted
No,
that
shot in
dog
his face.
out into space. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I thought you said in their
In the
face,
face.
too, and I was
thought you said
thinking,
in the face.
me too, and I was like, well, I mean, if you were holding a gun and they knew what that gun did, and then
Yeah.
so I was kind of
Yeah, like a hunter's dog. Yeah, that's what I was getting
oh
at.
damn,
Like I was gonna
launched
say,
into space.
a dog that has been on a few hunts and is a hunting dog and is around guns all the time that you've also trained to to communicate with you. You've spent some time on it.
But you could definitely assume that any living creature would not want to be
Yeah.
launched into space to die too.
You can assume that. Do you want to go away forever? Probably. We'll just say that. Go away.
Are you kidding me?
It's all in how you frame it. You want to go
Yeah.
on an adventure? It's time
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go. It's time to go.
It's getting out of hand. Everything I fucking say.
What does it say? Oh, free dog bed. Yeah, she was just talking about dog beds moments ago.
It's to the point where it's insane.
Yeah,
It's really insane
I
because I always do the don't allow it to whatever.
I saw a headline.
I have Siri off, all that.
No, it wasn't even a headline. It's the most recent Project Veritas, or no, I shouldn't even say that. It's James O'Keefe now. The most recent James O'Keefe leak is the IRS talking about how they use AI to be in everybody's, sorry, not the blah, 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 the 3-letter agency. I digress. It was not, I take that back. It was not what I said. It's
What
3-letter agency.
are we talking?
But apparently they can use AI to be in everybody's bank account at the same time, just at any given time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff is happening with money, technology, and everything where they're testing us.
Yeah.
How much?
This was one of those secret dates where the person was like, "Oh, tell me more. You're so cute," and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we're totally planning the the lockdowns, and oh, we're totally manipulating this other thing, and oh, we're totally using AI to be in everybody's bank accounts at once." And it's like, and
You should keep your money in a mattress.
yeah.
I'm gonna see if the baby.
It's harder to do.
Or so your mom. Let me back up.
Yeah.
Gosh, sorry. Josh and Molly, I called your mom, and they were just on their way home. So I would probably put money on it that she'll have the baby tomorrow night too. So do you want to do a Sunday Fun Day video?
Sure.
Watching stream. We got to pick good ones out so I'm not like, oh, and then I skip it before we finish the video.
Cultivated
Can't
TikToks.
keep doing that.
Yeah, cultivated Sunday Funday TikTok.
Right.
So
What time?
what?
7, 8. What are you thinking?
Oh,
9.
we can plan that after the stream, baby.
I'm trying
Usually
to-
like 7's a good time to start with. But
Okay, I just need it for a reason.
oh yeah,
right
7.
now, 'cause I-
7's good. Yeah, the baby's with grandma tonight. So mom and dad get to stream. But apparently the dogs have a problem with that. If you guys haven't noticed.
They're just
Yeah,
excited.
they're being
Yeah.
good right now. Though.
They are being
They're
very
always
good.
good, but they're just buttholes too.
Tim Allen, oh dear Lord, the moon is a space vessel. Yes, we mentioned that. Also story sauce. I'm just tossing out all the story seeds tonight, guys.
You're all wrong. The moon is made of cheese.
That's also a good story scene, Daniel, for like
That
a children's
man
book, right?
He's not made out of cheese. He is not. Oh wait, so is the man? If they call it the man in the moon, why does the moon have a face?
Right.
That's what I don't get.
Tim Allen, they talk about the moon, the planet flipping 90 degrees. So that's kind of where,
Yes,
Right.
that's
You
what he
know,
was talking
we're at
about.
a
with the
full moon
Planet
right
X
now,
thing.
yeah, and like kind of a little bit of my inspiration with RK. I was like, I was like, Earth 90 degrees. What happens? Turns out, it's gonna like have an ice age.
What was that last thing you said, Daniel? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even remember.
No, all good.
Fine then.
Oh, another fun theory from Michael Harris: sky jellyfish, because the upper atmosphere is the ocean teeming with life, mostly gaseous space. So they've had theories about this on like gas planets, especially methane-based ones. Why couldn't something like that? It's just like a lighter version, right? There's water, there's air, right? Air is a gas. You just have like a denser gas, and then you can kind of get into like flying jellyfish, kind of, or sky whales, even if you have the right circumstances. Life can evolve in a lot of crazy ways. 100%.
Planet fart sounds fun.
Right, and
Hell no, it doesn't.
and the upper atmosphere is like the ocean. That part is a flat Earth theory, because they say above the firmament is the waters above.
What would planet fart be like? Just a constant rumble, and it's really gassy.
Yeah, the
green,
volcanoes
cloudy
are just,
skies.
Yeah, it's a methane planet.
Yeah.
That's hot.
And there's theories of methane-based life. Actually, a fun theory I like to think about is life can evolve. So they say you need water to have life, specifically H2O. But what if I propose to you that you just need a liquid to have life? A liquid, and I don't know, I suppose the right temperatures, right? So you have like liquid methane, and I don't know, the right temperature, and then just like let it cook for 1,000,000 years or whatever. What happens, right? Maybe nothing, maybe some sort of methane-based life form that probably resembles like a jellyfish. I don't know the logistics of it.
Monster.
Right, fart monster. Exactly. Probably, what if it's just just comes at you. puffs the cloud at you. Gives you pink eye.
Oh, okay. The nastiest shit ever happened. It was not even that long ago. Orcus had his butt right by my face, and he farted, and I felt the wind on my face.
Wow.
The end. The end of me.
There's been government studies showing all sorts of life in our atmosphere, mostly just microbial and mushroom spores. This is actually how they check for life on distant planets. They hit the atmosphere at the right angle.
That's how we found life on Mars, right?
Sometime. I don't know. Was there life on Mars?
I'm pretty sure they confirmed life on Mars because of that.
They say
right?
where there's water, there's life, and they found water. So
yeah, but I thought, okay, well, besides the water, I thought they actually confirmed the.
I haven't been paying attention.
Okay, well, I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I remember a lot of random useless stuff, but I didn't remember that. But yeah, this is how they do it, and they think that like meteors or comets even could like gather some of this material and like crash into other planets and panspermia it up and start life. The more they look into it, the more life seems inevitable more than anything.
My only question is if we classify life on a microbial level,
does
that make all of us genocidal murderers because we use hand sanitizer constantly?
Yeah, it does. 100%. Just like if you squash a mosquito, take care of that beehive, shoot the squirrel, the red squirrel that's territorial, defending yourself against the bear.
We're all murderers.
Yep. Defending yourself against the home invader, another human. It's all, if you want to be super technical, it's all the same thing. You're taking a life. But if we want to be real, I'm not saying one thing has more value, but like there's priorities. And it's like the nature of nature for sometimes. I say this in my book. When one of my protagonists is like thinking about this a little bit when she's invading humanity in a very not happy way with her army, and she says it's the nature of it's the nature of the world for a predator to devour another predator from time to time, and doesn't mean it's right, but it does mean there's context that's kind of needed. Probably, because if you just say that person killed something, that sounds really brutal. Dang it, YouTube. That person deleted something, right? That sounds
in Minecraft.
This is all hypothetically in Minecraft, by the way. Just to clarify, everything I've said up until this point is all hypothetically in Minecraft. But like, yeah, that person deleted something. Very brutal. But if you're just like, oh, they had an infestation of bed bugs, right? Or they washed their hands, or they went and spanked their monkey a little bit. That's you can regard that. Just saying, in some
Monty Python level shit.
Millions of lives were snuffed out in an instant. Toilet flush sounds. But yeah, I don't know. It depends on how technical you want to go. But yeah. We got some more chats here. Official government studies. Yeah, we looked at that already. One of the largest.
That prompted the hand sanitizer conversation.
yeah. And I mean, wouldn't it be crazy if we're just like a floating speck through space and on some astronomically large god's hand, and it's just a matter of time before we get sanitized? YOLO, right?
Depending on what you believe, yes.
Yeah. What about the I think it's I want to say one of the Native American or indigenous folks of the Americas, but we're all this could be a European. Anyway, we're all just the thought. No. We all live inside the eye of a blue-eyed giant. That's why the sky is blue, because it's the eye of a giant. And beyond that,
definitely not the reflection of the ocean.
Definitely not. Yeah. But it's fascinating when you look into some of the old cultures too behind it. My favorite, the Native Americans were on the back of a turtle. The earth is a turtle, or they came here on the back of a turtle, one or the other. Both are acceptable. There's a lot of turtle stuff. A lot of turtle stuff. Like the turtle shell.
Done before.
Yeah. Like the turtle shell itself being encoded with knowledge because of the geometric patterns. It's imbued with like the rule of thirds and stuff like that. And the same thing with bees and beehives, and maybe not anthills, but if you could just pull an anthill out of the ground, it resembles trees. They do. Yeah. They don't.
Resembles root structures.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. Yep.
I used to watch those videos as a fun time pass. Guys would pour molten metal down into anthills and then let it cool and break the earth up around it, pull the whole thing out, and you can see, and it just resembles a root structure.
Hell yeah. I know it's an amazing thing. Mycelium with mushrooms, on and on. Every little interesting
layers.
Yeah, dude. There's one that's an entire forest. It's an entire forest that's all one organism.
That was the premise behind the Chroniclers and the March of Trees on Iron Age Media's prompts when I was doing those, was based around the concept of the mycelial network.
Yeah, man. So there's this concept. Have you heard? Here's a fascinating theory. So Earth has life on it. Okay, yes. The first life on Earth was fungus. Yes, okay. So if you've ever heard anybody say that like humanity and life on Earth is just kind of an extension of the Earth itself. So like our thoughts are kind of like the Earth's thoughts, and all those connected feelings that we have are kind of like because we're all just like of the Earth and we manifested from the Earth and stuff like that. When you think of stuff like that and you think of how like fungus came first, it's like everything evolves after fungus to serve the fungus. So the fungus is like is the Earth, because like we die and we decompose and we're absorbed by the fungus. Like we drop waste out, and that's perfect for fungus. We're filled with fungus. We're fungus factories, essentially.
So you're saying we're Goombas?
Yes, we're essentially walking evolved Goombas that do taxes and kill each other.
Are we going to talk about how we call our baby Goomba?
He is a Goomba. He's an adorable little Goomba.
Little Goomba Boomba.
Tim Allen says his mind wanders between supernatural with angelic demon conflicts. Okay, so I have my world of RK, but another world I'm working on is a truly, truly magical one that I think is where I'm going to go with like demons and angels and stuff like that. Like, I think that's going to be my sci-fi one too, honestly.
You know, the archetypical good versus evil trope is epitomized by the conflict of angels and demons.
100%. And the way I personify that a lot in like my RK stories is with the cycle of the seasons. So I would have to do something more cosmic for the sci-fi, and I think a good representation of that would be angels and demons. So like RK, you get this ground level, cyclical, tapping into all the seasonal lore, which I thought was kind of funny, seeing some of my scenes come to life in the comic, because I specified some stuff and it kind of made, you could see a little bit of Santa Claus lore coming out in the story, just a little bit. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. I'm not even going to tell him to change that. Because like, I swear, there's, we'll see if anybody catches it, but there's literally like a dancing elf. One of the characters looks like a dancing elf from the North Pole in one of the frames. And I'm totally here for it, because like when he zooms in, you see the fine details of him and stuff. And it's fine. It looks like the character more, but I just thought that was fun.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
One of the stories in my hundreds page idea file was taking the angels and demons trope to a scientific level. And the background behind it, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've looked at it, but the background behind it was two alien cultures who's were at war with each other and developed technology in similar but diametrically opposed systems, where two of their warships were locked in battle, and the one warship attempted to escape after critical damage to its systems using their form of travel, which was a phase technology, and accidentally phased itself into planet Earth. And
beautiful.
But got locked just outside of our three-dimensional reality. So this giant alien warship is sort of superimposed, but just slightly off the dimensional scale in planet Earth. And the other race that was at war with them came to the same area and have just been hanging out in the cosmos, keeping watch over this ship full of aliens to make sure that they don't come out and harm this planet of semi-primitive beings, us.
Yeah.
So the one race that's phased out uses what their technology to phase in for short periods of time and try to collect the materials that they need in order to free their ship. But to do so, they're going to have to destroy the planet, basically. And the other race that's hanging out in space, hidden away, comes to the planet to stop them when they go on their raiding parties. And that is the clash of angels and demons. We as humans interpret this one race of aliens as angels and this other race of aliens as demons, and they just sort of appear and clash with each other and then disappear again. And that's where the myths came from.
Oh, bro, you better believe when I jump into my sci-fi world, I'm going to be like contacting honestly, a lot of my recent Iron Age friends, some old friends from high school that I know their parents are pastors. They teach the children at the church. I'm going to hit up Brian McCoppin specifically, because he studies demonology. That was a fascinating thing I learned about him when he was on the show. I'm going to order my own copy of the Book of Enoch and the Emerald Tablets, and I'm going to read these some of these big named books like the Bhagavad Gita, the Indian
Do
one.
your research, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm going to get my own copies of these, and then I'm going to find specific things where they talk about these things, and I'm going to I'm going to do my thing, man, with the symbolism and the foreshadowing and all that. And it's going to be really fun to build this sci-fi world on the premise of biblical angels, demons, holy, God, devil, good, evil. Because, like I said, in Arche, it's like seasons. It's winter and summer. It's life and death. That's the other thing about Arche is it's not only just seasons. I like to do that through the lens of the characters, but a lot of it is actually more like life and death, and it ends up like it ends up being synonymous with like morality as well. There's a lot of moral questions in Arche, typically, but like so right away you can see like the morality theme with my stuff. I could easily jump that into like angels and demons. Are you kidding? Like for sure. But just to imagine a sci-fi world where everything is through that lens, like. Where I began with Arche was tropes, like the typical tropes, like but with a fresh coat of paint, done my way, with everything is through a scientific lens. That's the thing, and that's why I'm talking about sci-fi through a magical or spiritual lens, right? Because that's where I would just through and through have the most fun, because like on Arche, everything is through a scientific lens. So I had a lot of fun explaining all the typical fantasy races, coming up with my own, tossing in all of my favorite aspects that I love about fantasy, and then scientifically explaining them in my head. And like the most plausible are all the ones that got to stay, and those are canon. And I'm just going to have fun in that sandbox forever, probably. That's my fantasy world. But my sci-fi world, I would do much the same thing, where I would approach everything through a magical lens. So like with the typical tropes, like I said, right? So you look at all the big names, it would probably resemble something like my own gritty, dark version of like Star Trek, Star Wars, Warhammer, Dune. You know what I mean? Just everything that was done right. Halo. Halo has the Forerunners, the Forerunner technology, the Ancients. Dune has the robot uprising, and now magical like seers on their drug, which ties in with politics very well in the modern times with the trade and the spice, and what is it, Blade Runner. I know the dog doesn't like that movie when I bring it up, but Blade Runner with its social implications and stuff like that. What if all of that was explained every time all roads lead to magical spiritual angels, demons? I would have so much fun with that. And then just recreating, like I said, like the Book of Enoch, certain scenes. Are you familiar with some of the scenes in there, dude? It's like very specific too. It's like 200 angels, like specifically came down. They said this stuff, and then they just basically wanted to rule the earth. Let's go. And it's like, you can almost see that in a movie. It's like, holy crap. You know what I mean? So easy to just run away with that.
Easy, yeah.
Yeah, but I digress. That's the route I would go, just having fun explaining that. I think I would go to Mars, like very much like Doom. You know what I mean? Go to Mars, open a portal to hell or something. I don't know.
Daniel, would you ever go to Mars? Like, say we're actually moving people there and setting up life there. Would you go?
No.
Same. Screw that.
I'm an Earthling.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Anyone in the comments, would you go?
Anyone in the chat, would you go to Mars? Yes or no? John says he's listening.
Yeah, the Expanse was really good with sort of explaining how that would be difficult for people. Because they talk about the gravity change and the effect that would have on human physiology, and that would be my thing. I'm 40 almost 45. I've spent 45 years in a specific environment. I'm not going to move into a totally different gravitational system and try to exist there for the latter half of my life. That would just be silly.
Yeah. The best bet would be orbit.
Trying to learn to walk again.
Yeah, if you were born there, I mean, I'd imagine it would be so much different. And
Mhm.
I actually just watched The Martian for the first time a few weeks
good
back, maybe like a month ago or something.
Yeah. And by the way, widely regarded as a very good opening line to a novel, just like a great hook or whatever, widely accepted. This isn't my opinion, but also the reason I bring this up, Daniel, is because you're a teacher of this stuff. You're both editors. I'm surrounded by my editors. This is fantastic. I can't wait to tackle my novel this year with you guys, but I digress. That opening line is also the what's it called? What is it? White room syndrome, right?
Mm.
Is that the term? Where it's dialogue without a tag. Like it's just somebody talking and you don't know who's talking.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm not sure.
So it's like somebody in a white room. That's it. Because the story opens with dialogue, you could technically stop reading at that period during the second quotation. Stop right there, and you don't even know who said that. You know what I mean? I mean, the same is true for a lot of stuff, but I just think that's fascinating because it's widely regarded as a very good opening line, but it technically breaks a rule, a quote unquote rule, right? Because yeah, agents and editors for the Big Five will be the first one to be like, oh, that's white room syndrome or whatever the stupid term is for their sins is what they should really call it. That's the 17th sin. Haven't you studied all the sins of the trad publishing? Study your 25 sins and edit your book and come back. Why isn't there?
As much as he gets bagged on, I am a student of Twain more than anything else. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. Freedom, bro. Like even if there's like a missed comma, missed capitalization. Oh, this person doesn't do this particular formatting style. This person doesn't do this with whatever the case is, dialogue, since I was just talking about that, right? It doesn't matter as long as you can read it. If like you can read it and you're like picking up on the story, as long as it's digestible and it's not personally holding you back. Like, because think about how hard to read, for example, the Book of Enoch originally was. It didn't stop people from reading it. If it has a good story in it, let's be real, like it can be very difficult to read. Like this person's grasp on English.
Yes and no.
Yes.
Really, as much as there was a lot of snubbing his nose at the conventions of literature at the time, the format was still cleaved to. And the reason for that isn't so much the creativity loss as the acceptability of of society, because you're still giving it to the world. So it needs to make sense to the world. Right.
Otherwise, it's just kind of the ramblings of a madman.
Yeah,
even
there may be a niche for that, but if your intention is to give to the world at large, it needs to be in a format that the world at large can accept.
And there's some examples.
That is the failing of a lot of writers, and there are small groups that love them, but humanity at large did not.
At the time,
and you can make a case for it, but at the end of the day, if your intention is to appeal to or at least communicate with everyone, if that is your intention, if your intention is just to write for a niche, a genre, a specific community of people, good on you. You do it that way. The colloquialisms are a great example of this. I'll use one of my favorite things to point out in editing is the phrase pull a face.
The what face?
The phrase is pull a face.
Oh,
It is a colloquialism that basically means to give someone a confused look.
I gotta go put some contact solution in there. They're so freaking dry. I can't even keep them open. Okay.
that's it. Anyway, pull a face.
Yes. So most people in the world are going to react like you did. What was that? Pull a face. What does that mean?
Right.
But a certain subset in a certain cultural area will know what that means. So if you write for that particular cultural subset, you can use that colloquialism and not come across the
right.
what does that mean issue. But if you're trying to communicate with a much larger numerical statistic, using that term is going to get more what does that means than I understand that. And
Like,
that's the difference, in my opinion. Twain's mindset of write the way you want to write what you're going to write with your voice, your story, all of that I absolutely agree with. But even he recognized that in order to be understood by the world, you have to make sense to the world.
Right. No, because then they have to understand it too. Like, because otherwise we would have, like, for example, the Book of Enoch, if we didn't understand it, it would have just been another Voynich manuscript.
Yeah.
Right.
And
like,
Lovecraft was a great example of it. People love the lore and the mystery and
after the
enigma and horror of it. But at the time,
not at the time.
At the time, everybody's like, what the f is wrong with you?
What are you talking about, dude?
Yeah.
You're some racist, weird old guy. That's just, what are you doing? And then same with Edgar Allan Poe, like, you sad, strange man over there who's lost everybody in your life. Oh, you're dead in a gutter. Okay. What was he on about? Holy crap, this is good. You know what I mean? Emily Dickinson, ignored by everybody.
Yeah. And even then, if you look at like Poe's work, his specific way of narrating isn't common.
Yeah.
When we start to analyze what the stories were about, that's when we make the connection to it. The Telltale Heart, you make the connection behind how guilt can eat a person's mind.
Yeah, and there's all these
and go, okay, now I get it. But in the initial reading of it, you're like, what the hell is happening? How, like, heart beating under the floorboards that it killed somebody and buried him under his house? Like, what? But then you have that connectivity moment. And imagine, on the other hand, if at the time Poe had written those things in a way that was easily understood by his community,
he may not have, like, we may not be talking about him,
right?
Because
he may have been just appealing to that small subculture that surrounded him, and he may have been successful in his life, whereas he was not successful in his life, but gained notoriety.
He invented a genre. He like changed the world, essentially. And to further that, there's the other side of the coin, what I call Beatles syndrome, where you're so good at communicating with everybody universly, you're so good at it that's what carries you into immortality, I should say. The history books, I don't know what you want to call it, the zeitgeist, the culture, makes you a cultural icon. It worked for them because in the end they were doing uniquely Beatles things, but not until they had the money to sit in a studio for months at a time by themselves with baggies of whatever in front of them. And until they were doing that, they were just like every other band, playing 4 chords, singing like Beach Boys stuff. They were, and it was good. They were really good at it. That's why they got the money, which led to the studio, which led to the creativity and the freedom, I guess, and Edgar Allan Poe was just doing old-fashioned creative freedom, pen and paper.
He was expressing himself, and he wasn't trying to express himself in a way that everyone would understand. He was expressing himself at the most raw.
Yes.
And if you do that, some writers do, some don't. If you do that, if you're anywhere like me, you've vomited your thoughts onto a page just to see what the hell happened and would come from it. And when you do that, you realize that what Poe did, and to a lesser extent, I want to say Robert Frost was also very much in that same school of thought. Just express yourself in the most raw fashion you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
He just used specific pentameter for that, but doing so, you're not going to make sense. We're all different. We're all thinking things. We may be thinking the same things, but we're all thinking them in different ways.
Right.
And that was what Poe expressed. He thought all of his things out onto his pages in his own way and didn't try to self-edit or self-regulate his thoughts and his ideas. Yeah, it was completely creatively free.
And in the same vein, Lovecraft, being another penniless, poor, in his life, and then becoming a legend after, kind of the same thing with the freedom, sticking to smaller magazines, just publishing his things where he could, just to get them out there, really to pay the bills, and kind of like exercising.
Depends.
That.
Yeah, it depends on what your goal is. A lot of what we consider classic authors and pioneers were just expressing themselves. They weren't really actively trying to make
Tolkien.
money.
Tolkien, just a nerdy hobby. That's what a lot of it is for the real true greats. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And which is hard to do these days. We'll continue with that in a second. I'm going to catch up on the chat really quick. Tim Allen says, "You young pup, you." He's 10 years, 10 years younger, or 10 years young, older than you. 10 years young, older than you. That's what I'm going to say.
What is happening?
Because 10 years older, people say 10 years. I'm 30 years young.
It's all right, Tim Allen. If you ask my daughter, I act like I'm 90.
We all have those moments. John Douglas says, on the subject of mad ramblings, why is your favorite Iron Age book The Black Crown? Tell us why it's the favorite.
We have to
now I have to decide it. Now I have to decide if I want to hurt John Douglas's feelings or not.
Ruh-roh. Book of Enoch.
Now we have one of those streams.
Yeah. Rejected by the Catholic Church. Yes, it's a forbidden book of the Bible. Yeah. Yep. Fascinating.
On that question, I really did enjoy reading The Black Crown. And for a debut novel, it's fantastic. In ways that many debut novels are not. So I absolutely have to openly say that it is one of my favorite Iron Age books. But thus far, my absolute favorite Iron Age book that I've read / worked on / been exposed to is actually City Beneath the Eye.
Nice.
Who's
I
that
saw
by?
that one. Milton, right?
Yep, that's Milton Lane.
Milton A. Lane.
Okay.
That series of stories
Post-its. We'll add it to our list.
totally amazed me when it came across my desk.
Oh yeah, he's on the list.
What he created was mind-blowingly.
Is he already? I think he is on our list.
Yeah. Is it just without spoiling anything? Is it world or is it story? Right?
It's
is it like
story.
Or world?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. The reason it's so interesting to me is that there's one prevailing narrative going on, but it's a series of stories. So each story focuses around a different set of people, and the characterizations, the for lack of a better term, the focus on individual sins and repercussions with each of these stories, the thing that the person did and how that came back around on them through the course of this, while still sitting perfectly inside of the overarching narrative of this last bastion of humanity underneath an alien presence. It's all perfectly positioned under that umbrella, so you get the sense that the whole set of short stories is telling one extremely large story, like a full epic, but each individual story is so nuanced that you don't need to worry too much about that. You get it through exposure to each of these individual tales of tragedy and circumstance. It's reading through it when I was editing it, I was like, man, I gave my brutal analysis, but at the same time I was like, man, this thing is a banger.
I love that.
We have the author on our list, I'm pretty sure, for second round, but I noted the book.
Shout outs to Milton Lane. He's a good guy. Follow him on X. Find his stuff. Get City Beneath the Eye. Get The Black Crown by Jonathan A. Douglas, because that is also a banger. Can't wait to jump in. I almost started reading it, and Katie was like, no, we got to read that together. So I'm excited to bust out my orc voice. Wink, wink, John Douglas. My orc voice. And practice.
John
practice
and I talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm excited for that.
But it's I don't know. I think we benefit from so when we read books together, we'll take turns reading out loud, but we're not going to catch editing stuff for people. Not that it's totally unsolicited, of course. But it'll be weird if I catch something and then we miss stuff and not saying there's going to be anything in that book, but I just thought about that, how, we just read it differently. I can't help but notice things like that.
Like if I'm reading and then I don't tell you about the missed comma or the missed capitalization.
Or you might not notice.
Or I might not notice. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's just, I guess, a benefit to future readers and the author in that way.
Yeah.
If I'm reading it, but I could do my best orc voice.
Oh, yeah. Have at it, baby. Your eyes are better, actually. To be frank.
It really depends on what you're reading for. When I read for fun, I don't worry about the typos, things like that, unless it's so bad that it's hard to actually read.
I've yet to see that yet.
Yeah.
It'll drive me nuts.
It's happened once or twice, but really, to me, it's like putting on hats. If I buy a book just to read it, then I'm wearing my nerd hat and I'm just there to read it and see how fun it is. If it's a client who says, here's my manuscript, then I've got my editor hat on and I'm reading it for a totally different reason.
Teacher hat.
Yeah.
Or like Iron Chef, Gordon Ramsay. Yeah.
Does feel that way sometimes.
Yeah, gotta.
When I am editing, it's really hard for me to actually know what's even going on in the story because I just do it section by section. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the line, bro.
And when I'm doing it with Andy, I'll say something, and then it's like if I would have just read the next sentence, I wouldn't have had to say that or ask him whatever. So I drive him crazy, I'm sure.
Who's talking right now? Well, the next line. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that.
I don't shut up.
Yeah.
But that's a legitimate question because people read line by line.
Yes.
And I've pointed that out with clients before. You can definitely get confused. Like, whose voice is this? And
when she starts talking about moments like that, I am extremely self-analytical. Like, if somebody just showers me with praise, I mean, yeah, that feels good and stuff. Like, I'm like clenching my cheeks and bracing for impact every time I see that there's a new review. You know what I mean? And I've been happy to see that all of them have been pretty positive so far. And the criticism I've gotten in your Discord, shout outs to the Laureate Discord, join today. I can, if you toss that in the private chat at some point, I can drop it down for anybody listening. Oh,
It's
actually,
everything flows through whimsyland.org. So if you go on whimsyland.org, there's a bunch of multicolored buttons right at the top of the webpage. And one of them is the Discord invite link. You can just join directly through that.
And that's better anyway, because I'm not monetized and the chat doesn't pop up after the fact yet. So everybody in the chat is still pretty anonymous right now because it's all gone after the stream is over. It's pretty nice. These chats can get wild. They have permission to, technically.
Tomorrow I have to be in Lindstrom at 9:40 to sell that microwave.
Okay, love you. So what were we just talking about before?
Editing.
Oh, you're the book club.
Yes.
The book club. Yeah. So even the criticism I got in the book club, I took note of it, and I am gonna probably put like one last final edit on it at some point in the future, but it's not like high priority. It would just be like little details that would like you said, clarity for the reader, just like one extra paragraph here of like just clarifying something, you know.
Yeah.
None of it's unreadable though. Right
and
now,
the thing about that, and that's one of the things that drives me nuts about modern writers these days. The thing about that is that, well, there's a little bit of polishing involved, but when it comes to dialogue specifically, and I do it too, but I do it intentionally only when it's a one-on-one conversation. A lot of modern writers do this weird thing where they'll have full group conversations but have no indications of who's speaking.
Right, because modern teachers try to encourage young writers. I'm sure you've heard this. They downplay dialogue tags.
Yes,
to a mentally ill point where they view them as evil. No, it is okay to say he said. And then it's okay to say Daniel said, referring to the same person as he another time, because it's a little game that we're playing. How many times can we say the same thing in different ways so that it doesn't sound stale, right? So I say he said, then I say Daniel said, then I say the editor said, then I say the teacher said. Then, you know, you could just keep cycling all that, but then you get that chaotic, blindsiding unfamiliarity. Like, who's the teacher? Who's the editor? No, you gotta. There's degrees of it for sure.
Yeah,
but to ban dialogue tags is misguided, and there's clever ways to do it. Yeah,
and confusing for the person that's trying to read the thing, especially because modern writers make everything extremely dialogue heavy. Yes. Everything is a conversation nowadays, and if you like, this is one of those nods to Howard. With the Conan stuff, is for like 11 to 15,000 words, the average length of a Conan story, the dialogue tags were not missing.
Interesting. Oh, so
you only need 3 words, 2 words. Conan said.
Yeah.
You know, how hard is it to put that in there so you know that it's Conan speaking?
Right. And you don't need it every single time. Right. This is actually getting into something I actually have been dying to talk to somebody about. There's so many like subjects that I would love to just nerd out about on this stream with, honestly, specific people sometimes, anybody with other subjects, as you've seen with like conspiracy story sauce, for example. But specifically with you, this is something dialogue. So don't be against dialogue tags. Don't put them every time either, because there is something to what these modern writers are saying. Like I think we've all seen the story that's like he said over and over again. And again, it kind of gets this, it's not a good dissonance after a while. So I totally understand what they're saying, but to view them, to regard tags as evil is not a good take. And you can do stuff like he said one time, and then you can say, Daniel looked over at me with fire in his eyes, and then quote,
Mhm.
what are you doing? Unquote. You know
Right.
what I mean? I know Daniel's speaking. Guess what? I know Daniel's speaking, and you didn't say shit. You didn't clarify at all, but you did by specifying something about Daniel first. You
Mhm.
just said he did something. So we're thinking about Daniel when we're reading the dialogue, you know?
Right.
It's really simple. I mean, I'd imagine doing that every time would get confusing, though. Just like
Yeah, but to cut it out almost completely, and it's the same thing as the okay, this is what I'll clarify here, and it's a very interesting topic because it comes up a lot on the Twix on social media. You will see the "don't use adverbs" statement pop up pretty regularly.
one of the sins, one of the cardinal sins of trad.
Well, we
Like
ascribe
dialect.
that to a cardinal sin of trad, but that's not actually where it originated.
I think we've coined a term, by the way. The trad cardinal sins. We got to come up with them.
There's a lot of quote unquote sins that I see where I'm like, I would do that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like how they say not to use parentheses, but maybe it's because I know how to correctly use them, but there's nothing wrong with parentheses.
Yeah, when you look deeper into parentheses, it's not technically wrong. Everything, there's so many things that are not technically wrong, and it just comes down to style. So it's like you can catch it and go, but unless it's like you're trying to pull the trad cardinal sin card on me, it's just a matter of taste, bro. You know.
There's also things like this word or these two words. It could be hyphenated. It could be not. It goes both ways. The most common way is that, like, I'll leave that stuff alone. What about you, Danielle?
Yeah.
If it's a right way, but another way is more common, will you just leave it?
No, it's for me when I'm editing, it's the sense of the narrator's voice that determines it.
Like consistency, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if
consistency is huge.
Yeah. A big example for that one would be like the term double checked. It's actually technically a hyphenated word. Double checked. It's one concept made out of two words. But if the writer is consistently not hyphenating that, and it comes up multiple times in a full manuscript, I don't go back and hyphenate every single one,
right?
For them, because that's their chosen narrative language.
Right. Yeah, the taste. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same would go like the first couple of parentheses you see. It's like that's kind of odd. I'm going to take note of that, but then you see that they're doing it throughout. It's like,
if it's still right in a way, unless it's something that's
it's the same thing as European spellings of words like armor.
Yeah. Theater.
Right.
Yeah. Armor in American English is ARMOR. In traditional European English, it was ARMOUR.
Armour.
Unless it's blatantly wrong or like there's a lot of redundancy or something like that. I mean, you're just going to make way more work for yourself if you do change everything like that anyway.
Yeah. So and
again, that goes back to who you're writing for.
Yes.
Certain authors are writing in a European English style.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go back and Americanize all of the spellings that they chose because that's their style.
Right. They have and then like to say things a certain way too. I know it's not like a common way, but it adds voice to the author. Like I personally, something I took away from George R.R. Martin reading some of his stuff is half a heartbeat. I like that. I know it's distinctly him, but it really specifies a moment in time very well. I can say a moment, I can say a second, but like a second and a minute, those are very like our real world concepts. Half a heartbeat is more primal, universal. Everybody understands that amount of time. Like, I don't know. It's a good description.
It dictates urgency.
Yes. This moment.
But the adverb thing that really got my goat, so to speak, because that originated in copywriting. which is sales writing, not fiction writing.
Yeah.
But for some reason, a lot of people on social media started taking what the sales copywriters were saying and applying it to a totally different form of literature.
100%.
And that was
You
not
nailed it.
that was not a result of trad pub. It wasn't something that agents were espousing in fiction, but it somehow became part of that narrative on social media. And that always drove me nuts. And the reason it made me crazy was because fiction is the exaggeration of a story.
Yep.
And adverbs are the exaggeration of actions.
Right.
So if you're writing an exaggeration, use exaggerating words.
Yeah. And if you want like the tone to come off, like let's say you have an exaggerated world. You want to convey things passively, like don't tell me that there's these like rules that what you're dictating because you're the agent or like the literal gatekeeper between what somebody's trying to do for a career and like success in any semblance of the word, unless we want to go full lone wolf, which freaking more people than ever are doing lately, right? So,
yeah, but I mean, it's like, do you want to homogenize fiction?
No, you want people to go lone wolf. Yeah,
none of us do. But those statements are homogenizing statements. And the reason that sales copywriters say so is because it is a surefire method of manipulation for their specific form of literature. And only for their specific form of literature. So you could apply it to your marketing. Right. You could apply it to the way you write your blurbs.
I was just going to say
applying it to the way you write your entire book.
Right. Because then your whole book is a sales pitch from a business core.
And that's where we come into the problem of he said. Because in dialogue, you say things differently. Right now, I'm speaking with a semi-aggressive tone because this pisses me off. I have a passion for it. Yes. So I am speaking aggressively.
You're wearing a red shirt and you have brown hair. You are the embodiment of summer in life right now, Daniel, filled with passion. In the book of RK, you'd be the summer king. The summer king, which is Santa. We have turned the summer king into Santa, ladies and gentlemen. Holy shit. It's Santa versus Jack Frost, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah,
and that's the thing with when you remove adverbs, it makes dialogue stale, and you fall into the repetitive trap because the only thing you're allowed to say is he said, she said, they said, and adverbs is what makes those different. He said aggressively, he replied coolly.
Okay, and you look at the old, you look at the classics. Okay, so okay, I mentioned George R. Martin once already, the way he words something. He purposely uses adverbs, and I'll even put quotations around this, in a stupid way on purpose to convey things at times. Like he'll flex his muscles and he'll show you his intellectual prowess with writing at one part.
Such as it is.
Yeah. Like the witty, like you said, heavy dialogue scenes where it's like, oh, there's all this subtext. We're having this conversation about politics, but then he'll go to like a little kid's perspective and he's like, Arya thought that was stupid. Next sentence. You know what I mean? He said stupidly. You know what I mean? Like stupidly. And this is like a dude that was just like laying it on so thick with like, the literature side of it. And then suddenly he's like, and then the sound did this thing wetly. And then, you know what I mean? He's describing things like that. And it's like, well, it's to say the word wetly. That's why he's doing it. Like,
pretty much.
It's for ulterior motives, which probably involves symbolism and tone. He's setting a mood. Yeah. So to say adverbs, no, that's misguided.
Using Game of Thrones as an example to really simplify what I'm talking about here, imagine Peter Dinklage is the dwarf, and the way Peter Dinklage portrayed that character, if he didn't have context clues from adverbs in Martin's original format of the books,
Right.
he wouldn't be speaking the way that he did, and ultimately the character wouldn't have sounded nearly as cool.
Yeah, when Ramsay Bolton has like wet lips, and it's just unsettling when he goes into those details. And I don't know, like Michael Harris says right here, they're rad.
Yeah.
You just got to use them in the right way.
Yes.
Yes, like most things, you can break rules once you understand them.
There's a term called purple prose, happens a
Yes.
lot in romance genre, where you go too far.
Yes. Yes.
And it becomes wordy, unnecessarily wordy.
And not like pulpy. We're talking pulp. Okay, pulp is red. Purple prose. We're talking beyond that. You have spanked it so hard that it's purple.
Pretty
That's not
much.
good. Yeah, it's bruised. It's bruised. It's
Pretty
not
much.
good.
It's been abused.
Yes.
And really that's the threshold. If you're crossing into purple prose, you can get away with it if it's sparse, because sometimes some things are just that poetic that they need to be explained in a poetic fashion.
Yes.
But if everything that you're trying to write is poetic, then the whole thing is not poetic. It's the same concept of if everything is the same, nothing is unique.
Right.
You know? So
oh man,
you have to understand the balance of when to play poetry and when to get to the point, like you were talking about with Martin's, stupidly adverb.
Right. I actually have a section in my book that I can read. That is, I purposely go purple sometimes, Daniel. But you got to force some blood in there a little bit.
My favorite G Sedai advertisement: chill rain scented air.
Hell yeah! What is? Tell me about it while I'm looking for this document.
It's just an excerpt that I created when trying to describe a synopsis of Hannah's escape from the brothel in the beginning of G Sedai, and it's just those 4 words: chill rain scented air. It's very poetic, and the reason I wrote it that way was intentionally purple prose, because I wanted that particular paragraph to be eye-catching, because it's a very important part of the story. And that was when she was coming right out of the door after being imprisoned in this building for years. Her first experience with the world outside of this building, where she has been brutalized in traumatic ways, was the cold and the smell of rain in the air, because it had just been raining during Gabriel and Curio's fight. Those 2 things were intentionally poetic because I wanted to grab onto the reader's attention and say, this is an experience that she's not used to, and it's the first thing that she'll remember for the rest of her life, that moment when she ran out the door into chill rain scented air.
Right. See, and that's the way to do it, man. Sometimes you just want to dwell on a part for a minute to just like give the reader enough time to visualize what's really happening. It's not just like snappy conversation. This is a moment here, and we're going to dwell on it for a second and really describe some stuff.
That's one of the things I get a lot with G Sedai. One is that it's not dialogue heavy at all. It's more physicality oriented. There's a lot of conversation that goes on in the story, but the conversations that are had are in the ring of weapons against other weapons.
Right. Okay, I think I found it. Okay. Okay. So this is a part I go a little more purple on, and it's a moment that I really wanted to capture because, I'm kind of like, it's strange, like how you can, just the way you describe things and the word choices you use, you can like have multiple layers to it, where you can describe what's actually happening and the way you say it describes an overall idea, and then that idea ties in with the narrative, and then it's also foreshadowing. You know what I mean? You can do a lot of stuff with it, and it's a really beautiful thing, and it's what makes me really love writing. So it starts off, you know, basically this character is a sorceress, and she has a magical object that lets her control plants with her voice. So she uses her voice, she can control plants. She was queened, she united all of her tribes, and now she's invading humanity. And this is the moment after she's bursted into the city, flooded the city, this ancient city, or it's not ancient, actually, it's freshly built, but I digress. The city.
A lot of explanation.
Yes. I'm just setting the stage here. She's basically in front of the temple. She's using her magic to awaken the roots beneath the earth and devour the temple. So the symbolism here is like nature consuming, right? Civilization. And it's just a freaking moment. And in hindsight, after I got the audiobook, when I was listening to it, I realized I accidentally kind of I described nature in this aspect as like an animal, like attacking and consuming another animal. And I don't know, it stood out to me. I'm not really one to toot my own horn on some things, but this one for some reason stood out to me because it just came off as so dark. Just nature consuming man, even though you're kind of I mean, even when you're supposed to be rooting for her, it's kind of hard to, because I don't know, just the way it's described, you understand the greater ideas of what's going on. Like we were saying, the way you word things, it can be a hero, but it's worded menacingly or something. But true. I digress. So, Votisa, the crowd shrieked as roots, dismembered stumps, and vines crept up the sides of the temple. By the time they brought the final required prisoner, 8 black husks lay in a heap beside the queen, with a growing pool of red mud beneath them. Green and brown fingers pushed their way into the oculus of the temple dome, causing the entire structure to shiver as they clamped down. Cracks spread out along the surface like buckling ice, plumes of white dust bursting into the air as the white temple began to bend under the pressure. The stones seemed to scream and cough over the moaning roots, tightening down around it as pieces began to break away. So the stones are screaming and coughing as the moaning roots are tightening down around it. You know, the brown fingers push their way into the oculus of the temple, like almost like an eye being gouged out.
Did you ever fix that part where you said something twice in that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. So the stones screamed and coughed. Yeah. Yeah, that's basically it. So yeah, like in that little scene, you can see how, like, just from that description, you can really personify things and like bring things to life. Like that is simply just her using her magic to destroy the human's temple, right? Mm-hmm. But if you go a little purple with it, I dedicated 1 paragraph to that, and there's a little extra fat at the beginning of that paragraph that doesn't need to be there. You know, it's so I had room to spare. And just that little description, you really get this feeling that nature is just like, oh, I'm coming for you, clamping down, and humanity is like screaming and coughing and shivering in response. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Yeah. You can really get there.
True.
If you want to get there. But
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any other cool, like purple? Good purple, I should say. I mean,
probably.
Well, I mean, okay, so it is getting kind of late. If you gotta take off.
No, I'm good.
Okay, we are at 2.5 hours. Let me catch up with the chat here quick.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah, Tim Allen says he fell in love with Tad Williams' trilogy, Sorrow, Memory, and Thorn. I've heard good things about Sorrow, Memory, and Thorn. A lot of people like that. I think it popped up when I was specifically researching something at one point, some aspect of writing. But I digress. I can't remember what that aspect was. Tim Allen also says
Not
Herman,
familiar with that story, but I might check it out at some point when I get some time.
Sorrow, Memory, and Thorn. Yeah, I've heard good things. Like some people say it's like really good. Herman the One-Eyed German has been beaten purple. Yes, yes. And then Michael Harris. Writing is rhythmic. Sometimes it flows, sometimes it's hammering like a hardcore song. 100%, bro. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, it becomes purple when you're writing like that the whole time. Like, cool. Yes, you have expressed that you can weave a yarn, so to speak, but you're weaving too many yarns and they're turning purple. If that makes sense. You don't say purple prose until it's bad, you know, and until it's bad, it's just colorful. It's colorful.
Indeed. There's nothing wrong with it as long as you are capable of balancing it in the narrative.
100%. You know.
But so if you follow social media, you're not allowed to use adverbs, and that's like, you know, trying to operate your entire life with one arm tied behind your back. It's silly.
And of course they want to spread that, you know, because when a bunch of people are coming to you, you can look for the manuscripts that are following all those sins, like avoiding all the sins that you've put out into the ether on social media. So you can kind of see who's drinking the Kool-Aid, right? And just be like, oh, okay, this person will play ball and give me all their rights, and I can buy their story for like $1,000, you know. It's like, yeah, that $1,000 would help, but come on, let's be real. That 10,000, yeah, it would help, but it's gone. Like, that's bills for not even a year. Come on, get real, you know. Not even 10 months of rent. Get fuck real. Like, my whole story? You want my world? No. No, I'm gonna go self-publish, you know. It's fine. I will market. I know I don't have your trad connections.
If trad pub's what you want to do, that's fine.
It is fine. I'm knocking trad ideology, like the gatekeeping superiority complex. That's the industrial complex.
I do want to ask Daniel, what is your biggest pet peeve that you see all the time, just in general, for spelling errors? Because mine by far is when people say couldn't of or would of instead of would have, couldn't have. I can't handle it.
Yeah, that's speech versus literature. It's how people talk versus how people should write.
Yeah.
That drives me mad. What about you? What's like one of the one things at least that gets you?
As far as spelling, I don't have a pet peeve with spelling. My biggest pet peeve, period, as an editor, is the word as.
I guess mine is grammar. It wasn't spelling, because it's just
as is the most improperly abused word.
As tall as a tree. Is that improper?
No, that's correct.
All right. You scared me for a second, because I had some things that I'm like,
as it should be.
I'm being symbolic over here with my writing, and it's like, no, you're just writing like a
when
moron.
As is used as what I call a connective, which is me making up my own version of and but conjunctions, that's when I get annoyed with writing. And the explanation I'll give for that one, without calling anyone specifically out, is I'll make this up real quick.
Yeah.
John opened his phone as it rang, as a car drove by, as a bird flew overhead, as he scratched his ass, and it just keeps going on and on and on. That's that is as abuse. What up?
Okay.
Kahuna?
I have
As abuse. I needed to hear that exactly right to not be concerned.
No,
yes.
How
that
you
is
guys
as
doing, man?
abuse. That,
Doing good,
and
buddy.
that is, it's really just a rookie mistake. As is sort of more, it's a simile word in that it's supposed to be representing something that's either happening in tandem with the subject of the sentence,
All right.
or it's something that is describing the subject. Using AC's example, tall as a tree. A tree is very tall. So if you're saying a person is tall as a tree, you are likening them to the height of a tree. But if you're using as to continue a whole string of things that are quote unquote happening at the same time, but do not fit the subject.
Oh, so it's not a
That's when it's
connective.
wrong.
It's not a connective word, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Right, right.
And that's the problem. In certain situations, like for example, John opened his phone as it began to ring. Yeah, you could get away with that if you put the period at the end there. But tacking on as a car drove by, as a bird flew overhead, as he scratched his ass, that turns it into this big, confusing run-on sentence because you've got multiple subjects now.
I've been told
It's not
that's a
about
problem
John.
with my writing, that I my sentences are too long, and I hate it. I'm like, dang it, you're right, but I gotta work on it, man.
So I'm super relieved to hear that that's what you're talking about with as abuse, because I'm like hyper paranoid about run-on sentences to the point where I second guess myself, and it may cause some inconsistencies with like semicolons and dashes. But I tend to just kind of lean on dashes just as a general rule, and like if I really have been abusing them, then I'll toss a semicolon in there, and that's kind of my recipe as far as the spice on top. But
I have no issue with dashes. Dashes I understand, but as it just sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's really a narrative choice, a vocal narrative choice. If you're trying to read for an audiobook, a string of as's, it just sounds horrible.
It does sound horrible.
I was just gonna say is like because of my hyper paranoia, I would be okay, and like my musical background, right? So you can view it as like a measure of music. So like let's say the melody you came up with is da 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 da. You know,
Never
we've
heard
all
that
heard
one
that.
before.
Never heard that one before.
No, not once.
Well, that's a certain amount of space. That's like one sentence. If you want, you know. So if your melody sounds like crap, you don't know it unless you play it out loud and hear it speak the sentence out loud. So like I'm speaking it in my head as I'm writing it, and I'm trying to imagine the audiobook. I mean, I don't know. It's weird. Like my brain just automatically does these things where you kind of you're visualizing it, you're hearing it in your head. When you read it out loud, you're also physically hearing it. And if any of that feels awkward in any way, reconsider it.
Oh yeah,
that,
like for my live readings that I've done on my channel on a few live streams.
Yeah,
I need to plan the next one actually, but any mistakes in the actual writing itself become very, very clear as I start reading, because most of these stories I've never read aloud before, or maybe not even read, and so I'm going through it. I'm like, there's one in particular I remember. I'm like, I'm making this book sound really bad, but it, like, truth be told, part of it's me not quite understanding what he's doing with his sentences here, but it's also just not flowing very well, and that's not all me. There's a bit more structural work that needs to be done there.
It would be you if you're skipping commas and stuff.
My favorite sentence in Jisadai is probably the worst sentence for anyone that has tried to read it out loud.
I wonder which chapter is it in? Do you remember?
Right in chapter 1.
I did read your chapter 1, so I'm trying to. I do remember there's one or two that I thought were a little bit off. I wonder which one it was.
The brilliant neon cacophony was blinding.
Yep, I remember it.
I love that sentence. I love it to death, but I absolutely acknowledge that it is a tragedy for people to try to read out loud.
Luckily, by the time I read your chapter 1 of G Sedai on my channel, I had already read it just by myself before. Doing that makes a huge, like trying to read something aloud to an audience off the fly when you've never read it before is something. It's hard.
It is.
Look at Royce, but yeah, no. Oh,
Yep.
It's great, man. It's great. Also, is that the Buster sword? What is that sword behind you, Daniel? I've always wanted to know.
Yes.
There you go.
Here we go.
Just let me whip this out. Oh, bro, that thing's huge.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
There you go. Oh, dude, that thing's awesome. That's so cool.
This is Advent Children Cloud's Buster Sword with the material slots.
I thought it was the Buster Sword. I'm like, no other sword looks that ridiculous.
Yep. And this thing is a beast. It is extremely heavy. I have Siegfried from Soul Calibur smash this thing into a bumper just to see what would happen.
I've seen swords like that. They had what was it? It was probably on one of those Texas gun channels, but they had this bodybuild, like really this strong man, this giant like Robert Oberst, lift up a sword like that was like 120 pounds or something like that, and he demolished this car with that thing. It was sick. It's what I like.
Yeah.
It's like I like complicated, deep discussions like this, but sometimes giant man smashes a small car with big sword. That's enough.
That's always enough.
The other end of the scabbard is an absolute mess from the sheer weight. It's just
too much.
And yeah. So I don't tend to take it out unless I absolutely have to.
We were talking about Purple Prose. Nice background, by the way. Purple as hell.
Now he's got purple room.
I don't. People always talk about Purple Prose like it's bad, but I really like done well. I really enjoy it. It depends on.
Oh
yeah. Like I like poetic prose, depending on the needs of the story. Obviously, like even a story like yours, Daniel. Like it comes up every now and then. Like it's not entirely devoid of, abstract description. You need a bit of that for there to be any flavor, I think.
Absolutely. And most importantly, when I was writing the combat scenes, I tried to lean into as close to purple prose as I possibly could without making it too
cringy,
ridiculous. And that's because there's only so many ways that you can really plainly describe the swing of a sword.
And
so
like
you have to make it interesting.
100%.
You want it to be interesting, but you also don't want it to go too far. Like I read there's this author I read recently, a mainstream author I tried out recently. I don't know, I didn't read this book, but he wrote Nevernight. I think he's like a young adult like fantasy author. Bro, every single sentence is like, I'm an edgelord, and it's like she slit his throat and the blood splattered open, and his throat opened up like flat, like the petals of a flower. Like every single description is like that, and it's physical pain.
It's purple.
Yep.
We were just talking about that. Yeah. Like
there are times when simple is more effective than purple.
Yeah.
Yes.
Specifically, I can point to the. Not too many spoilers because it's been out for a while now. The death blow for Michael at the end of G Sedai 1. The spin of the sword and ramming the cap into his throat. That was intentionally as simplified as possible because that moment needed to be succinct. It was one shot at ending it. So I couldn't be flowery with it. I couldn't be just super descriptive and playful. It would have taken away from the dire urgency of that moment.
That's another good point, Daniel, is like sometimes, okay, Kahuna, that author that you were reading, if he was like super purple the whole time, that would actually make the opposite a little bit more powerful in his story. So if he all of a sudden had a moment where he
The
just
sober
gets right
moments.
to the point. Yeah, he just gets right to the point, and it's actually a rug pulling moment, and he's just like, and then John stabbed Carol. Period.
Right. Yeah.
It kind of
Whoa.
like in Serenity, the death
Yeah.
in that movie. Not to spoil that for anyone here who hasn't seen
Yeah,
it. Watch that
It's
movie. but-
abrupt.
and
Yeah.
it's so out of character for the way the heroes are treated in that story for the most part.
Mhm.
It's very effective for that exact reason. But
Yep.
Mhm.
yeah,
And I actually,
oh,
you
sorry,
go.
go ahead.
You go. No, you go. I've had
Of
a
all
few
the
hours.
of all the Iron books, age books that I've read, I'd say in writing style and overall style of like the structure of the story as well, I think yours is maybe the most cinematic, the one I can most easily see as a movie or like a short, like kind of film kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so whatever that's worth, that's my opinion, and I really appreciate that your books for that
Absolute
reason.
intention.
Yes, and I'm reading. I'm like, he sees this. Like I've
Yeah.
my friends of mine have lived in Japan, and they've sent me pictures. I'm like, this doesn't look real. This looks like something fake. And like, I'm thinking of those pictures while reading your book. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna read his book on the stream. I need some rain in the background, a little city noise, and
Yep.
I'm gonna-
It was very much intentionally written that way. Like I said before, my big inspiration for it was Akira Kurosawa films. So
yes.
every scene was visualized before it was written, and I immersed myself in it. That's also one of my big pieces of advice to clients is if you want to write a scene that really grabs people's attention, you need to stand in the middle of it yourself in your mind's eye. You need to imagine yourself in the position of one of your characters and then describe what's around you in your head.
Yeah.
100%.
I did a lot of that in A Promise of Starlight. I hope you're ready to hop in the shoes of a pregnant lady who discovers magic. She's just a mama trying to escape.
I'm
the
already
cruel
halfway there.
world.
Wait.
Yeah. Pregnant part?
Yes. This baby's been growing for a long time.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of that time I like the best way I could get a description is just like putting myself in her shoes, you know? I don't know. You're a pregnant lady. You got a baby in your belly right there. Yeah, you have magic, but it has like maybe 2 shots in it before you're good. And then you're back to defenseless. You know what I mean? It's very much like I have 2 bullets to this gun and it's the only gun. You know
Well,
what I mean?
it's
much
a great
like
example of like a glass cannon kind of thing. It's like it's very
Mhm.
powerful, but
Yeah, very
it's
much.
very fragile at the same time.
and that allowed me to like imagine the environment. So then I get some cool settings in there. Like I have a fungal jungle.
Say that
Fungus
jungle.
Yeah, fungal jungle.
Fungus jungus.
Fungus jungus. Yeah, thinking of stuff like that. I have a whole territory of the island that floods every year, and it causes the trees to look a certain way. And the natives of the island know that, but
Yeah,
perhaps
that
an
was
invading.
when I did Chroniclers and the Fountain Iron Age prompt way back. That was how I was described the frozen town was by imagining myself standing in that square and looking
and what
at
you
everything.
hear, what you smell.
the
yeah.
lack of any sound because everything was stuck in stasis, so it was
Yeah.
dead silent. There
And the
was no noise.
snow also muffles sound, so it makes things very, very quiet, even more so than is natural.
Great detail.
Yeah,
Yeah, great
So-
detail for those who
and
live
just
in
how
snowy areas.
surreal it would feel to look at something like it's a picture. Hey, guilty gearhead, but you're standing in it. Like I tried to imagine if I was standing in the Starry Night painting, like just looking at this thing from inside of it on one of the streets in that painted town, yet looking up at these bursts of color.
Why do you just
Yeah.
have that, Andy?
Why wouldn't
For
you
this
have?
stream, for this stream, I was reading Daniel's mind through his television set because he didn't wear tinfoil.
Yeah, I don't have a
Honest,
tinfoil hat on.
The lizard people told him about it, actually.
Damn
From
radio
the hollow
waves.
flat earth. The lizard people from the hollow flat earth.
Yeah.
The hollow
come
flat
from-
earth.
Yeah.
Yep, they come from the lands of Asgard and the great
People all
beyond.
over the globe are
On the
talking
ice
about
wall.
the flat Earth. Wait,
Yep.
I just when I think
Andy's
flat Earth, I'm
confirmed
just
he's a lizard person.
when I just think flat Earth now, I just imagine like a globe, like a snow globe, you know, the firmament, the water's above, and then just like tentacles coming down out of the water, like past the sun and the moon, because they say that swirls inside the glass or ice dome. The sky's
very
blue because it's
fond of
ice and
Cthulhu.
water.
you
Like,
Lovecraft simping son of a no.
Oh, just the firmament cracking open and then water pouring out and then like tentacles reaching down in, and you just know that's the end. Oh, and also the world's flat.
I
This world is.
just picture that scene from Rick and Morty where the giant naked Santa's in the sky. It's like Goon is falling
That's
from
such
the
a good
sky.
episode, dude. That's such a good episode. How are we looking at in the Rockies? Well, it's looking fine. And then like it's just a giant. The shadow is the silhouette of a dong. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
dude,
right.
it's that show's not always good, but when it's good, it's very, very funny.
When it's good, it hits some heavies. Yeah,
Also, I just kind of butted in here. What were you guys talking about originally?
Purple Prose. What do you think?
Perfect.
We were both talking about how great it would be if Kahuna jumped in. We were like,
Oh,
man,
good. You're like,
I miss my
without
Kahuna.
him, this stream just doesn't feel complete somehow. There's something
yeah, he's the third co-host.
We stayed on this long just for you.
Yep.
I just got off with Brian McCopp, and we were doing a live stream for my episode 4 of Iron Age Legends. Everybody scheduled everything at the same time. Yeah, no, Brian's a great guy, man. It was like we talked for like 2 hours plus. Yeah, it was fantastic, man.
Well, I'm creeping on your thing and retweeting it right now. So.
Oh, thanks, man.
I'm re-Xing it. I'm re-Xing it.
So Daniel, you have your G Sedai and G Sedai 2 is coming out very, very soon. Wait, no, the comic is coming out. I know, I own it. I'm dumb. I just said the wrong thing.
Yeah, the comic issue number 2 will be much sooner than the first one because we got all that funding from the campaign. So
hell yeah, dude.
Kevin's working on pages 10 through 20 right now. So
dude,
maybe a month or two, I'm thinking we'll be ready to launch the next special edition campaign and get that rolling.
Good. Oh yeah, you sent me an email about like apparently the cover I ordered was something went wrong and wasn't able to get it done.
So when I originally set up to start the campaign, this is just a thing that I do. Most people don't do, but it's a weird thing that I have going on with myself. I saw this artist who was kind of down on his luck financially, and I liked what he did. So I said, hey, if you want, I can throw you some money, make me a cover for my comic book that's coming out. Yeah. And so I offered it as a variant, but he ended up getting hurt in an accident and couldn't finish the cover in time.
Oh, Pooji?
Yes.
Pooji's great. Pooji's great. Yeah, he's actually working
unfortunately on I tried giving him as much time as possible, but as soon as the campaign ended, I was like, okay, it's not here. I have to go to print, so I'm just gonna have to move on without it. And that's why I sent you that email.
Yeah, I and just quick on the subject of Pooji, he was, he was saying he was down on hard times, and I can have Mark Hatherley, my artist for a Memory of Mortality. I could have him do his own line work. I could, and I was like, I want to help this guy out. I like Pooji. He's very talented. He's a father, very nice guy. So I was actually I was willing to pay him more for at least a few pages, of some line work. But it was quickly turning into like he would maybe help us with the entire thing. But yeah, that accident happened, and now I'm just kind of like, Mark, it does make more sense that I just have you do your own work. Wouldn't that just make the most sense? I mean, as much as I want to help people, but
sometimes life just kicks you in the nads, man.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Love Pooji, nice guy.
Well, it's like, can you imagine being the guys at DreamWorks back in the day? Chris Farley has filmed and recorded 95% of his lines for the movie, and then he bites it. And you're looking at for Shrek, and you're looking at a franchise going forward, and you're like, it's 90% done. We could just do this, but if we're going to make more movies, maybe we just need to hire someone. That had to be such a hard decision to make. Honestly.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, I don't know. You can make more movies still with, there's ways, but yeah, that's a decision for a meeting room, like a business room or whatever, a panel of writers, actually, I would say, not a business room, but like a panel of writers involved.
Never leave it up to the writers in Hollywood.
Specifically in Hollywood, yeah. But I assume merit.
That's a strong, that's a bold move there, brother.
Super bold in this day and age. Have you just
hard assumption?
Have you just gone and taken a scant glance at what the agent's wish list for manuscripts are?
I've seen it, and I thought it was a joke. Honestly.
It's like 90% of them. It's not a joke. I thought it was too, but yeah, because believe it or not, when I first rejoined Twitter, it was to find agents. I was like, I need to support my family. I've seen positive things for indie. I've been in indie my entire life with music since I was like 17, doing that whole thing. I would very much like to just have things handled so I can raise my son, right?
Yep.
That was my mindset, which is the allure for a lot of people to indie. But dude, like one maybe 2 days of just looking through that, I was like, is it really like 90%? And then you find like that scant minority, and you scroll a little bit, and it's like, no, they're looking for the same thing too. It's like
a lot of the mainstream authors I still follow got established before a lot of this nonsense became so predominant in the like say the writing space in general, like the authorship kind of space. And it's like new people coming in aren't going to get that same kind of level of free kind of like freedom of storytelling that some of these guys have. And like some of the only good books still coming out of mainstream books and such.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's such, like at this point I would not encourage anyone who wants to tell their story authentically to try to get published that way.
All right. I mean, yeah, it's like Daniel was saying, like you want to be clear for as many people as possible, or I mean, you can write in your niche like Poe and other famous writers like Dickinson, who were recognized. Yeah. Recognized after the fact, but like they didn't. I mean, look at Poe. How did he die? In a gutter, right? Wasn't that like in a gutter, or was that
technically,
or was that both? Was that both? I mean,
he's a poet, I assume, in a bottle, but I don't really know. Tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, that's a sad reality. I mean, I'm the first person to tell you that the modern idea of a starving artist is a myth, but like at one point there literally was actual starving artists. Not that there isn't now. There definitely is people who insist on being that, like sell everything, move to LA. Holy shit, is that a choice?
To do that now is a wild thought.
Yeah, come on now. Like the fact that I was a kid at any point in time hearing other people talking about stuff like that. It's not just that, there's a lot of options. Like think about just joining the military. That's kind of the standardized government version of selling everything and moving to Hollywood. Right?
I almost did that multiple times when I was younger. I almost went the whole military route, man. Had the shaved head and everything. If you could believe
same. I was almost a cop as well.
I have so much trouble picturing that because Andy, the youngest picture I've ever seen of you is of you like in the early days of the band. Your buddy posted it on Twix the other day. I was like, bro, you look like a kid. That's so freaky.
Dude, I so was. But yeah, it was just before that time, like I want to say 2, maybe 3 at most years prior. I was seriously considering becoming a cop. Hold on, I gotta talk to Katie quick.
Okay. So Daniel, I've seen G Sedai and some of your short stories as well. What does your fantasy look like? Because I haven't had a chance to kind of dive into any of your fantasy writing.
It's a hidden gem. Right now it's only available in ebook format, and the reason for that is a strange story. When I did the print format for it, I did large print and it was huge, like magazine
Oh.
sized. And the reason I did that was because of my grandmother, who had passed away a few years ago. But when I wrote the books, the only person that I really wanted to read it was my grandmother. So I had it set up in paperback format in large print for old people that can't see very well, and had them printed and gave them to her. And then I would have had to go through and create a whole nother paperback in standard format. And by that point, I was already on the road with G Sedai and was just like, leave it be.
Is it something you could ever see yourself kind of going back to, or no?
Oh, I am, definitely. I don't know if you probably haven't seen it. I only posted it once. I have a cover design for what's known as Tales of Halcyon Reforged. And that is going to be a single volume of compendium of all 3 books in one physical format. And I'm going to tweak it before it comes out, because there are some things that I would like to address in that original draft that needed to be corrected, in my opinion, now with what I know how to do at this point. The story's silly. The idea behind it,
if it's well written, a silly story is really good, man.
Well, the idea behind it was to play on a slight subversion of the heroic quest. So the story wraps around the idea of this interesting wizard who arrives at this small village and convinces a fat kid that he's the chosen one that needs to go on this epic adventure to save the world. But the wizard doesn't actually explain what it is he has to save the world from. And it's all based around a fortune.
Childhood obesity. Wait, that's effed up.
So you have this, the instead of the strapping young lad of standard pulp fantasy who goes on this epic adventure, you have a slovenly, whiny, derelict kid raised by his mother, dad not in the picture for most of his life, so he's got very few masculine traits, and he's lived in this village where he's made fun of for his weight. He's highly emotional, and then this
far from your standard
wizard shows up and goes, "You're meant to do something great," and the kid goes, "Oh, freaking finally!" Like, this is
I've been waiting my whole life for this moment.
Yeah. But as soon as he gets on the adventure, he's like, this is a lot of work and I hate everything about it.
This is hard.
But the idea behind it was to take somebody who was wholly not ready for that sort of thing, throw him into the deep end of it, and
sink or swim kind of thing.
Yeah, and see what human nature would make out of that sort of environment. And he the first individual that becomes part of his little fantasy troupe is a fairy dragon named Perikstar, who claims him because he thinks he's funny and sits on the poor kid's head, calls him fat slave, and orders him around. And they argue constantly because this dragon is dangerous and could potentially kill him, and he's a coward at that point, so he just rolls with it.
It sounds like it sounds compelling, man. There's only one other fantasy book I can think of with that kind of character premise kind of thing, and that's The Black Prism by Brent Weeks. The main boy is kind of like that too, like kind of just this chubby, not skilled. Yeah.
And my joke with it, the title of the first book was called The Wizard's Mistake, and that tells you everything you need to know. It gets a little odd because I threw in a lot of fantastical tropes that I really enjoy about everything, and so I sort of mix them into a pot. So you have the fairy dragon. There's a girl who becomes the main character's love interest over time, but he's absolutely horrible at it. So they have a headbutting thing going on, and that was me trying to exaggerate to a certain extent gender role, because you have a boy who is not masculine, you have a girl who really wants to be masculine because she wants to be an adventurer. Yeah, she wants to be the great adventurer. She wants to make a name for herself and become a legend. And she gloms onto this group in order to facilitate that. And then the final member of the cast is a robot from the ancient civilization.
That's cool.
It essentially was a communistic drone. Like, its programming is totally designed around making things easier for humans.
Okay.
No
so
regard
like the opposite of Liberty Prime.
Yeah, with no regard for itself. And over the course of the story, I play with intelligent design a little bit with that character, and even the party, they have a brief conversation about how it's acts like it has its own personality, so it has to be alive in some sort of way, but it's all done from the lens of a bunch of teenagers that don't know their ass from the hole in the ground. So
wonder what that's like.
Yeah, eventually the whole thing spirals even further, and they get into the actual mystic quest, and it turns out, no worries about spoilers here, but it turns out that the wizard himself isn't even sure that the boy that he chose from that village is actually the chosen one. He just assumed based on the information that was given to him.
Oh, I love an assuming wizard.
Yeah.
No terrible world-altering mistakes that have ever happened from that. Not
exactly. Once. But that's human nature, you know. And what it is that the wizard just had faith. He believed that he was directed to go to this place to find this kid, and he believed that this kid was the kid that was going to save the world. So he put all his faith behind this kid that, for all intents and purposes, shouldn't have been believed in the first place.
100%. It's like, even in Harry Potter, it's like, wow, like, obviously because we're reading, we know Harry Potter's the chosen one, but it's like, hey guys, the chosen one's either Harry Potter or Neville.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. It expands, it contracts. Each of the characters, with the exception of Perikstar, who is just sort of flat arc the whole time, goes through a sort of metamorphosis. Even the wizard makes some truly terrible decisions during the war in the third book, and realizes that he's gone too far. And by the end of it, he's sort of renounced everything about himself and become a whole different person in order to make up for the truly terrible war crimes he committed during that confrontation. Every character had a cathartic moment, even the robot.
That's how it should be, man. Like, a good story can make you care about a character you have no business caring about. Like, I'll dive into anime for this one. What was it? Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. It makes you care about the little growth spurt, undergrown panda bear that the little girl owns. It makes you care about that stupid panda. And a good story can do that. It can make you care about a character, even if it doesn't make sense that you care about this character. It's like I started watching Cobra Kai, just yesterday. Never seen him before. And I loved Karate Kid growing up. So watching that, I was like, I care about even this little crappy kid I love all these. Yeah, it's a good story can do that. I love it, man.
Writing that trilogy was me trying to flex role-playing game muscles in a literature format. Before writing books, I had done a lot of tabletop RPGing over the course of my long existence, and one of the things that always intrigued me was developing characters. So I would make detailed, in-depth, almost living people out of every character I create for a game. So said, if I'm going to write a book, I'm going to make living, breathing people and put them
Yep.
through the story.
I did
And
so.
yeah, that became the basis for a lot of stuff. And then there's even a slight reference to a failed novel of mine in the fantasy book, because I wanted to originally create this sort of weird multi-universe where everything was interconnected with all of my writing.
Hard to do.
Decided not to do that, but there is an airship in Tales of Halcyon that has an American flag, a faded American flag painted on the side of it. And the reason for that was I had already storyboarded a sci-fi-ish Western with airships called Rise of the Patriot. I've written that book twice and I still don't like it. Yeah.
Oh no.
But I've written it 2 times and I still don't like it. So hopefully
what's the problem?
First version of Rise of the Patriot I wrote was a Dark Vengeance story. So the idea
in a Western I don't know if that works.
Yeah, exactly. It was sort of like a future civil war that the wrong side won. The main character was on the losing side. He was incarcerated for over a decade in their the winning government's slave penal colonies. And when he's finally released, he's gone a bit mad over time. So there's a little bit of a Valjean Javert thing going on, where he's put all of his anger on this one officer in the new government. And so he goes out.
Everything in the world must bend to his hatred, kind of thing.
Yes, pretty much. And the vehicle for that is the Patriot, the airship that he used in the war. He builds it, rebuilds it, and takes back to the skies to go after this guy. Wrote it all out, didn't like it, so I just put it aside. Many months later, I went, okay, let's try turning this to something a little less serious. So I went with a ragtag group of ex-soldiers, Firefly style.
I was going to say Firefly, right?
And centered the story around a young man who went searching for this guy, the same character from the original concept, went searching for this guy to learn about his father who died in the war. And in doing so, the boy's altruistic, wanting to help people mentality rubbed off on this grizzled veteran and his remaining surviving members of his squad. So they take to the skies to try to bring freedom and liberty back to the people under the reign of these futuristic high
revolution.
High tech society of moral degenerates. You can see where I'm going with this. Yeah,
There's no.
I exaggerated current culture so hard with the high tech civilization that they almost didn't make sense to the rest of the people that lived outside of their culture. Like they were totally alien to them, and it was over exaggerated lefty stuff. A lot of characters that you couldn't tell what gender they were. A lot of weird Hunger Games style fashion and mannerisms. And these high society folk would come down and just terrorize the common people and take what they want because they had all of the technology and
they're enlightened.
Everybody else was living with the bears.
We are educated, yeah. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do well. Like my favorite.
I wrote it all out, and I was like, "This is not serious enough." So it's just like I can't find the right balance to where I want to give it to everyone else at this point.
There's something there you just haven't quite put it in its perfect spot yet.
Yep, exactly.
On that note, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Kahuna, looking good, by the way. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
in the alleyway after this. No,
Yep.
You can find me at
Behind,
The Ultimate Kahuna on Twix or Twitter, and The Ultimate Kahuna on YouTube. I have a lot of shows coming up. I'm going to be doing an anime taste stream numero 2 here soon. I have a lot of, I need to do some reading streams, some writing streams, the whole thing, videos of books in the art of storytelling, and much, much more. But alas, that's it, man. Go check it out. And also, just got done filming Iron Age Legends number 4 with Mr. Brian McCoppin tonight. Went for a little over 2 hours. The man's a legend, and it was an honor to have him on the show. So check it out.
I mentioned him also tonight regarding demonology.
Yes, yeah. We talked a lot about Christian fiction and the good and bad, but yeah, it was good.
Hell yeah. I'll have to check that one out. Daniel, where can everybody find you?
At Mr. DP Riley on the Twix. I also have now signed up for a Patreonic offshoot thing called Ream that I didn't mention earlier. I guess I should mention it now. It is where I'm going to start focusing a lot of my lore and some how-to guides for those of you that are interested in creating yourselves. There will be a membership tier that will have access to my actual writing process, in that I'm working on a serial short story series called Crybaby, A Drifter's Tale. Only members on Ream will have access to that story. Otherwise, tomorrow is IAK Sunday, where you can have coffee with Royce at 11. You can get some work done on your project, or just hang out with me on the Freelancer at 3 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. And then in the evenings, chill with Richard from IronAge.media.
Do you know what time Richard starts? Because I think we were thinking about doing a Sunday fun day.
I feel like
I
7.
believe the chill stream starts at 7:30
Gotcha.
Central. I think. Yeah.
Let's try to plan around
Fairly
that
certain.
then. Yeah. I
7:30.
think our first Sunday fun day, we popped in like after Royce, before you. Something.
The weekend,
we were only live for now.
The weekend, that's a problem. The weekend is slammed with stuff, and for me, like
Mhm.
any weekend I don't have the kids is like, that's production time for me. I have to plan out all my streams and videos and edit and film, and then pretend to learn how to use my PC editing BS and all that jazz.
Have fun.
That's why I designed the Freelancer. I was like, okay, if I'm going to do a live stream series, I'm going to do something that people can be productive on. So, and that's what the Freelancer is. We do 20-minute writing sprints where just some music is put on, and you can watch me type if you really want to, or you can work on what you're working on with me, and then we'll talk in between.
Oh yeah, I think the last one I caught, I was doing some editing on Spirit
I was
Animals
editing
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. Yeah, drop in,
Also,
say some comments, go back to writing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get back to work.
Yeah.
Also, Daniel, real quick, I want you to judge me for a second, because I'm very bad with grammar when it comes to my writing. So instead of just remembering all the rules or looking them up as I go, I'll just grab a book that's written in a similar kind of format and style to what I'm doing, and I'll just compare my sentences in the way that they write to what I'm writing at the time, and I'll try to hopefully keep to the rules of writing according to. In that fashion. Is that completely stupid, or just a little bit stupid?
I don't think it's stupid at all. If what you're writing is a specific style, like if your particular narrative tone is based on a specific style for whatever story it is that you're doing. If it's, we'll use Conan as an example. If you're doing a sword and sorcery pulp style story, then yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with emulating the written format of
the masters.
Yeah,
these tropes and genre, these tropes and tones and word choices, even sometimes themes, all these things form together and create genres, and basically what you're, like he said, what you're trying to emulate your story off of. So
Yeah,
like,
so there's no harm in doing that. When it comes to rules of writing, like we were talking about earlier, I don't
Yeah.
believe there are any.
yeah, cardinal sins.
Okay, good, because I don't use semicolons. I know they exist. I know how they work. I just hate how they look on the written page, so I don't use
It's
them.
literally just a formality. It's like semicolons are just a more formal
Comma.
I believe
yeah.
there's a format that's clear communication for the most people, which is what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So I do believe that there is a structure involved that is most widely accepted. And if you want to be most widely accepted, you should try to lean towards that structure as much as possible. But at the end of the day, it's your story.
Yeah.
You tell it the way you want to tell it.
Yeah.
Because
Sanderson
it's
nails it.
authentically coming from you.
Sanderson gets some flack for his simplicity, but he's doing exactly what you're saying. The dude has a degree in English, like several things. He's a teacher every year at his old college that he went to, specifically to, usher in the next generations and stuff and help them actually, honestly, become indie or trad. Like, he's not just pumping out trad babies. He's like, he'll bring in successful indies and have them talk and stuff like that.
And then I think of like another favorite author of mine, Pierce Brown. He breaks certain rules of writing fairly off. Like, he does some weird ones too. Like the simple one is there's one character. He's the only character he does this for. Every time he speaks, it's in bold.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun little dumb one. But another one is he writes from first person perspective, for first person POV, which means you're in the head of the person. You should know everything that they know. But sometimes you don't know everything that person knows because he still wants to surprise you. So he kind of cheats a little bit here and there. I'm like, you're stretching
if it works,
that a little.
it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
It does. But when I finished reading, I'm like, you definitely cheated. I saw what you did there.
I may have cheated a little bit in mine because I wanted
I had
first
that
person.
problem with Area of the Dragon too.
Yeah. It is a thing. That's why first person is a little trickier than like most, I will say, internet sources, trad sources will tell you. They're all so quick to be like, oh, that's so easy. It's like lowbrow. It's quick. It's YA. It's all ages. It's
hard.
Kids.
Especially if you're writing third. I tried writing a first person story. It was god awful.
It's a different language. It really is. It's a different angle of telling the story, and people who can pull it off well deserve credit, especially.
I'm bucking tradition a little bit on purpose with that because I wrote Area of the Dragon as a first person story. So everything that is in there is from the perspective of the main character, who is not the monster. It's just what everything is happening to. Mm-hmm. After finishing Area of the Dragon, I went, hell no, I'm never doing this again. And all the rest of them are going to be third person going forward because fuck that.
First person is so hard, dude, honestly.
Dude, I did the same thing. It's like did you just finish that story?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, we were doing the same thing at the same time, Daniel. That's so crazy. It's so weird.
I finished Area of the Dragon in December.
I rejoined Twitter in February after I finished Promise of Starlight.
Oh, okay. That makes I remember finding you, and then like you changed your name, and I'm like, is this you?
I decided to make a
more professional handle.
Yeah. I'm not even done, but a while back I was writing a story based on an Iron Age media prompt for Downpour, and it's a first person epistolary style.
Oh hell yeah!
1960s America vampire romance story.
Party on, Garth.
Bro, it was like my brain was melting because I was trying to figure out how to write. It was so hard, dude. I should finish it. It's a sad but good book, but yeah, or a story anyway. But yeah,
that's gnarly.
Trying too many things at once, man. It was a little rough.
But I got away with you're supposed to know everything that they know cheating thing in first person by just sticking to what she's thinking about right now. What's on her mind right now, and each scene I zoomed in from moment to moment. And
Did you see that this is an uncorrected proof, not for sale?
oh, cool! I didn't know that. We found that in a little library. That's cool. We found an uncorrected proof, not for sale, in a little library of like a trad book. That's cool.
Oh, what do you know?
It's not in fiction?
But anyway, yeah. I just kind of what I would do with each scene. I had a goal in mind for each scene, and you basically jump in. And I think this is why I went right to short stories after I finished that. I love short stories. Oh my gosh, that's so fun. It's so fun just diving in and then getting out of there. Like, seriously.
Especially if it doesn't work.
Yeah. It's like, okay, glad that's over. You know, I don't have to do another 100,000 words. But
It's like I went on one date with her. I didn't have to marry her first. Well,
Yeah.
except for that one. Anyway.
when you commit, yeah. Okay. So,
That was how I got around it with Air of the Dragon, was just staying tightly focused on the main character. So anything that
at the
happened,
moment.
yeah,
the
anything that happened outside of his actual vicinity was not relevant to the story at all.
And you're not always thinking about everything that's going on in your world at the same
Yep.
time, like in all the history that you know and every person you've ever met and stuff like that. You're thinking about different things. So I just tried to kind of keep it a stream of
Keep it
consciousness.
in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Because otherwise, what am I doing, Kahuna? I'm just telling you about RK. We're not telling a story. She's just thinking about all the lore and history of RK. Then, if that's the case, if you know everything she knows, I'm just gonna tell you.
I love when an author is good enough in a fantasy book to have a basically world building chapter and not let you know it directly.
Yeah.
You realize it afterwards. You son of a gun!
Yeah.
You were a historian, but you were just telling me about. Dang it! You tricked me.
Why are you always teaching us things that we don't want to learn?
Because it's important to this kingdom in this time. You're like,
Yeah.
son of a gun. I see what you did there.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna say my spiel and then we'll do the outro. Thanks for everybody listening, by the way, and everybody sticking around. Thanks for coming on, Daniel.
Tim Allen. Absolutely.
Last time Daniel was on, it was more like a split Daniel Mind Flayer episode. So this is nice like even though Kahuna's here, it was a nice little cherry on top at the end, you know, like the late game Kahuna, always nice.
I love it.
And you came fresh with like the new HUD. It's sick, bro.
Ooh,
it's sick.
Yeah.
Does this work? Oh, that works. Look at that. Yeah. So you can find me on X at _C_Pritchard. You can find my wife on X at Moonzillatero. She's also my editor. Much like Daniel here, but not as hard focused on editing, you know. But you can follow us both there. You can follow the Pritchard Pub Substack at pritchardpub.substack.com. And there you can, paid subs get access to my first audiobook, which is technically early access, but it's the complete story that I read earlier in this podcast. Actually, that scene is I listened to
I've heard it, guys. Don't miss it. It's really, really good.
So you get access to that, and we will be developing that soon and offering more features for paid subs and stuff. There's my free content, which is Spirit Animals. That's acpritchard.substack.com. Got 2 episodes out. Kahuna, I got the whole third basically outlined. I know everything that's going to happen. Kahuna here has been helping me world build his particular character in the story, and seeing a little bit how the sausage is made over here at AC Land.
Kahuna's the sausage, all of it. It's all out there.
I was annoying him with the sausage a little bit at first. At least I felt like I was, but I was doing it on purpose. No, I know you're working on your stuff. So, and I know you're very pro outline, right? I think I've heard you give that advice to people before. Outlines.
I've told people, do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing. If you are someone who is having trouble, if you're a perpetual world builder who is having trouble writing your story, you need to start outlining.
Okay.
If you are someone who is just gun ho going for it, and you run into the problem where you're getting lost and getting stuck, or
maybe pants it.
Yeah, maybe pants it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Like basically force yourself to knock the rust off of whichever angle. It's like
most early, like most kind of young quote unquote writers, they're either the kind where they never start writing and they just need to pants it and not worry about the details, figure it out later,
At some
or
point,
they're
you
the
gotta
ones
jump.
that are getting stuck and they actually need to freaking think about it for 4 seconds before continuing.
Yep. You gotta jump at some point.
The
bird has to fly.
easiest thing to do with that sort of problem is both outline.
Yes, yes.
Outline
No, yeah.
your story.
I've
Always outline your story. But when you are writing, follow the stream of consciousness.
100%. Like I said, I had a goal for each scene. Then I put myself in her head. I kind of know where she's at. And then as I need details, I go, well, like, what's the room look like? Okay, stop dwelling on it because I don't need to know everything in the room. Move on to the next thing because I got to reach the goal so that this scene doesn't become a chapter because the book's already going to be so freaking long. Because I was able, here's the other handy thing about outlines. I was able to predict how long my book would be. I wrote the first chapter.
That's true.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is okay. And I projected it out and I was like, oh, and guess what? A year later when I finished it, I wasn't off by much. I'll say that. It actually gave me some room to add as much as I want in editing.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty great. And take away as much as I want, quite frankly.
Yep.
So
What
according
I
to
use-
Daniel, have a plan, but also go where the kahunas beckon.
Yes. Yeah. Do both.
What I usually do is each chapter gets 4 bullet points, which is things that I absolutely want to happen in the chapter.
Yeah.
And then when I'm writing, I let it go in whatever direction it needs to go, as long as those 4 things are touched on.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's it. That's
Mhm.
all you really need to do.
When you simplify it that much, it gives you so much room to play with like foreshadowing.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it gets really fun and addicting. And then a year later, you have a book that's too long and needs to be edited. Nice.
I feel like I need to start drinking.
It's about that time. But fellas,
About time
thank
for
you
bed.
again. We're gonna send it out on that. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Woo!
There it is.
Thanks for everybody listening.